right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the work session of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees.
Thank you. We have two items scheduled for tonight's work session. The first is a discussion with representative from Comcast. Staff invited Andy Davis, who's the Director of Regulatory and Government Affairs for Comcast, to tonight's meeting to discuss with the board the general Comcast operations in town and answer any questions the board might have. The town has a franchise agreement with Comcast to provide cable television to customers in town, and we are currently working with them on a possible renewal of that franchise agreement. With that, I'd like to introduce Andy.
I think Mark's going to try to pull up the slides.
Okay.
We just give those over to him. So hopefully, otherwise I'm looking at something that you're not looking at. Well, I guess while we're getting that set up, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Andy Davis, as Matt said, Director of Government Affairs for Comcast, and my territory includes West Metro Denver and the mountain communities and most of the Boulder Valley. I'd just say learning about sort of this session and what might be useful. What I'm going to run through here, and hopefully we can pull it up in the slides, is just a little bit about Comcast today, because I think one thing I'm finding as I meet with a lot of my communities is that in a lot of respects, while the franchise really only governs the provision of TV service, I think in a lot of respects the relationship that cities and the relationship between Comcast and cities has really been all about the franchise. And so to some extent, I think what has happened is that cities, given that traditional relationship, have really viewed, really only see Comcast as sort of the cable provider of old, and that's really not the company that we are today. I mean, there's quite a bit's changed in terms of the technology platform that we operate, the fact that we own NBC Universal. It's we're more of a media and a technology and a media company now than the sort of legacy cable company that I think most of you are probably familiar with. So that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about. Did it come through? Not come through? Yeah. That'll work. Thanks for your patience here. Do this on the fly. There we go. See if that works. Thanks for your patience here. Okay, so moving right along here. Let's see if this will work. Okay, yeah, so this is, we kind of touched on the overview and just, we'll just touch on some of the main things that we do today as a company. A little bit about the franchise, just in some of the basic terms. A little bit about our community investments. That's a piece of information I don't know if everybody is always as familiar about what we do in the state. Some new developments, particularly in the technology and customer experience side of our work, and then economic development, which is a big part of how we see the relationship with our communities evolving. And then lastly, some questions. So Comcast, like I said, not the cable company of old. It really is, it's a media and a technology and a media company. Technology platform is totally different. We've got and as we these are some of the brands that are underneath us now as we look at sort of the media aspect of what we do. As I said, we own NBC Universal, which carries with it a variety of properties as well. And then obviously that gets into Universal Studios, Universal Pictures, et cetera. These are sort of the primary products that we provide today. So X1 Entertainment Operating System is the TV platform that we operate today. X1 has been one of our major technological developments, actually has won an Emmy for TV technology. And what it is, it really just makes the user experience just a lot more robust, easier to navigate in terms of choosing your programming, in terms of how you record programming, but also it's TV everywhere. It's the ability to live stream in your home off any device, watch, you can pull up, one person can be watching TV, and if somebody else wants to watch something else, they can pull up a laptop or an iPad and watch something entirely different. So you can live stream within the home. But also the TV Go platform where you can watch, there's a variety of programs that you can watch outside the home off of any device. Xfinity Internet, fastest internet in the country right now on a wide scale, and delivering speeds locally. And I'll get into this a little bit more. We're up to 2 gigs right now. That's available today. You could get if you're within one third of a mile of our plant, you can get a 2 gig product today in the metro area. We're still doing some engineering to make that possible in the mountain communities, but that's possible today if you're near a footprint in the metro area. Xfinity Home is our home automation and security products, which I think more people are starting to get a little bit more familiar with. But that's a part of our business that's really blowing up in terms of the application of third-party devices. So things like Philips lighting and Nest thermostats and just a variety of third-party devices that are now being integrated into Xfinity Home for total automation, energy efficiency, and obviously security. And then last is Xfinity Voice, which is our voice products. So again, that just kind of gives you just an overview of the big. There's a lot more that's going on in each one of these. You could go pretty deep into all of them, but those are sort of the major product and service categories. So when we talk about the franchise, though, again, as Matt said at the start, and I think it said in your staff memo, is that really the franchise, and probably most of you are familiar, it really only governs the provision of a wireline TV product. So if there's a satellite dish on your home, then that is actually not regulated by the city and isn't subject to the fees and oversight of the city. But if you provide a wireline product, a wire into the home, we obviously have to access public rights-of-way to make that happen, to build that infrastructure. So at the core of that agreement, it's our access to public rights-of-way in exchange for 5% of our gross revenues related to our TV services in the community. But there are obviously some other elements to that as well. So non-exclusive agreement, that's probably not surprising. So if there is another provider that wanted to come into the community, they can certainly do that. 10-year term is what we are generally doing, and that's what we've proposed in this initial draft. Certainly, we believe the right time frame. I know a lot of times a question that will come up is, well, but technology is going to change a lot in those 10 years. And really, when it comes to the rights of way and what is in the fiber and the network that's in the ground, that actually changes a lot less than the technology that's on the ends of that wire. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in our technological developments. But a 10-year term makes some sense because if you did a 5-year term, we actually start the negotiation process again 3 years out from expiration. So you would almost start negotiating again just within 2 years of having updated. So what we're finding is 10 years really gives us certainty, it gives the town certainty, and also you're not just constantly renegotiating. Like I said, at its core, it's the use of public right-of-way for the exchange of 5% of gross revenues. But the other things that are involved in a franchise agreement are customer service standards, construction standards within the community, public education and government, the PEG channel, as we call it, and then reporting requirements, things that we would report back to the community. I keep hitting the wrong button there. When we look at sort of our community investments, that's just something too that we want to highlight because a lot of times people don't realize some of these little aspects of what we do in Colorado. But we have roughly 8,000 employees, and outside of Philadelphia, Colorado actually has the highest concentration of Comcast employees. Philadelphia is where we're headquartered, and that's partly because our region headquarters, the Mountain West region, is headquartered here in Colorado, but our West Division is also headquartered here as well. So, and the West Division is about 7 different regions in the West. We did, it's just in 2014, $17.4 million in both cash and in-kind donations to over 200 organizations in Colorado. our national partners, as it says up there, Boys and Girls Clubs, United Way, City Year. Comcast Cares Day, which some of you may be familiar with, is the largest corporate sort of volunteer day. We deploy basically our entire workforce across the country, and some pretty impressive things that we can do with that army of volunteers. Last few years I've worked with the Easter Seals Project in Lakewood, and we bring about 100 volunteers, and it's the folks at Easter Seals have said, just using that as an example, we can do more with those 100 volunteers in one day than they can do with a group of volunteers over about 6 months. So it's a pretty impressive sort of force that comes out for Comcast Cares Day. And then one of the other things that's an element of the franchise, but also something that we view as a community investment, is our free cable to town buildings, but also schools, libraries, et cetera. But one thing I want to highlight more specifically is when it comes to our community investments is our Internet Essentials program. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that, but Internet Essentials is our principal community is our highest priority community investment program. But what it is for families who have kids K through 12 who are eligible for free and reduced school lunch, they can get a broadband connection for $9.95 a month. They can get a laptop computer for about $150, and then free digital literacy training for the family. Right now in Colorado, we've connected, in 24,000 families in Colorado, 500,000 families nationwide, and we just started the 4th year of this program. What's been great about the program, though, we initially started it, was originally in a condition of the merger with NBC, but it's become, in the first 3 years of the program, it became core to what we do in our community investment. And each year, one thing that's been great about it is that we really do take the feedback we're getting from our community partners to continually evolve the program. And one thing that happened in this last back to school period, because usually we announce our changes, is that it now includes a free Wi-Fi router. One of the things that we did, an important development in terms of eligibility, is that any school, so like I said, it's primarily targeted families with kids K through 12 who are free and reduced school lunch eligible. But one way we've tried to simplify eligibility is that if you have a school where the school population is 50% free and reduced or more, the percentage of students who are free and reduced eligible, if it's 50% or more, that entire school is eligible for the program. So the eligibility is even easier because all you're doing is proving that you go to that school. So that was a big development. In the Boulder Valley, we have about 632 low-income families, which is about 43% of the eligible families in the Boulder Valley School District. Still could do better, but it's certainly a start. But the one thing I was going to mention is this last part. And when we think about how we're evolving the program, this September we announced a very unique development that's going on only here in Colorado and Illinois, and that's that we've expanded the program to community college students. So community college students who are essentially the eligibility would be if they are Pell Grant recipients, they would be eligible for this program as well. And that's been pretty exciting too. Students in a lot of cases in the community college system are working multiple jobs. By the time they get a chance to do their schoolwork, the library's closed. So getting access at home at a low price point was really impactful for their school studies and their work. And then, and one other thing I wanted to say about the program was it was originally targeted towards students, right? That you had students who had access at school but may not have access at home. And as more and more schoolwork and parental communication is done online, really the focus was students. But what we found over the course of the program is that it really has impact for the entire family. It's job research and applications, it's bill paying, it's staying in touch with family. So we've seen and we've actually got some great research on that if anybody's interested. We can share that. I keep hitting the wrong one. So just thinking about some of our technology developments, because I think, again, I appreciate the opportunity just to tell you a little bit more about some of what's going on with us and where our technology is headed. So one is what we call sort of the gigabit modem, and we're moving to what's a protocol called DOCSIS 3.1. And what that enables us to do is, and again, I was talking about the technology that's on the ends of the wire as opposed to the wire itself. Certainly we're pushing fiber deeper and deeper into our communities, getting it closer to the establishments, the residences, and the businesses. But what we've also been doing is developing modem technology that allows us to use our network, which is which is called a hybrid fiber coax network. So you've got some fiber and you've got some coaxial cables that go to the home. We're able to do, with DOCSIS 3.1 technology, we're able to do a gigabit, move over a gigabit of data over that hybrid network. So in other words, what that means is you're not having to rewire everything, but you're able to get gigabit speeds. That technology is already beginning to roll out and will be across our entire footprint in 2016. I mentioned 2 gig cities. Our product there is called Gigabit Pro, and that is it's a fiber to the home, 2 gig symmetrical connection that's possible today. It's at a higher price point for sure, but it does bring, for those who do need that level of connectivity, and a gig is a lot, 2 gigs is a lot, but it is possible today if for residences that want it. And this is a residential product, because on the business side, Comcast Business, we can do 10 gigabit circuits and have been doing that for a while. So gigabit connectivity is not something new to us. I think one thing I'm learning as I work with my communities is that a lot of folks don't know that we have been doing gigabit connectivity for some time. But these are some residential products where you can get gig level connectivity. And then the other is that right at the bottom of that 2 gig cities is that 250 megs is available today. I mean, if you're in the Comcast footprint, that's basically a phone call. So then we've got some new applications, basically rolling out new apps all the time. But one is that has come out recently is Xfinity Share, and that's the ability to live stream from your device to the TV of someone who's an X1 customer. You can actually, if you're at your child's baseball game, you could live stream that to the TV. If the grandparents had X1 and they wanted to watch the game, you could live stream it to them. Voice remote is another technology that we're getting a lot of good feedback on, and that's the ability literally to push button and say, NBC, and it'll pull up NBC. And then lastly, like I was starting to talk about when we talked about Xfinity Home, is just the third-party devices that we're weaving into that set of capabilities in the home. And then wanted to touch on, I know it's important for all of you, and certainly it's important to all of us.
Andy?
Yeah.
We're almost out of time.
Oh, I'm going to shoot. Okay.
Can I just ask a simple question?
Yeah, absolutely.
If we don't renew your franchise, how is any of this threatened? How does any of this change if we do not renew the franchise?
Well, I would say this isn't necessarily threatened, but you wouldn't have our service. I mean, we wouldn't be authorized to provide service in the city. So, I mean, our development of these technologies will continue as they wouldn't happen in Superior.
Right. Yeah, I was not on the board when this was last renewed.
Yeah.
So that's what I need clarity on.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So
yeah, and
what's threatened if we don't do it, and why should we do it?
We are, right now we've got 1,000 subscribers in about roughly 1,000 subscribers in Superior. If we no longer had the ability, we had no longer to franchise in Superior, we could no longer provide service to those customers. So you have 1,000 customers who no longer have cable TV service, but then that also, challenges our ability to provide the other services as well. Okay. I wasn't aware that was a possibility. I mean, I think really what we've been working on is, I think with a draft, is to try to come to agreement to renew. Right. And certainly, if there's feedback from the trustees of ways that we can improve what we're doing, we certainly would love to know that. But yeah, I mean, not renewing would mean we'd have 1,000 people who didn't get service anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. And I apologize for eating up quite so much time. We can get into this. You guys can take a peek here, but I know the customer experience is where we get a lot of criticism, and what we would say is rightfully so. It is an area where we have not been as strong as we need to be, and our CEO, the CEO of Comcast Cable, Neil Smith, announced in May that and this is also in the wake of the Time Warner merger not going through, but basically saying, listen, we need to put massive resources, effort, time, personnel, rethinking as to how our customers experience our product and our service, and there's a lot of work to do there. So
how can we possibly put pressure through renewing this contract towards the real issue for the town, and that's the internet service, where that is the service is pretty low there. How can we make that a win-win for both.
Right.
You
Well-
get the franchise, and we get some better service for internet.
Sure. Well, I mean, the challenge I would say is that internet is not part of the franchise. I mean,
I
that's,
understand that.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
can we leverage
Well,
this?
and I guess what I'm saying is that the speed capabilities I'm talking about right now those are available today in Superior. So if somebody wants to get a 250 meg connection, they can get that today. If they want to get a 2 gig connection, they could get that today if they're within a third of the
Well,
line.
and I'll just give you an example.
Yeah.
I just purchased 50 gigs, but most of the time it's not 50. It's more like 6, 7. Sometimes it's 50.
50 megs?
I'm-
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
megs. Sorry. It fluctuates
Right.
wildly.
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 Wild.
Is that
Okay,
over
we got
ours
that.
or is it over our network?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I mean, the one-
and there's times when it's down, like no warning, it's down.
Yeah.
So those are the concerns, and I think
Sure.
whether you have 50 megs, 25 or 7 or whatever, everyone experiences pretty much the same thing.
You
So I'm
wanna
just wondering
get
how
what
we
you're
can
paying
leverage
for.
that.
Yeah.
I'm a longtime Comcast customer, but cost is a huge issue.
Right.
I mean, and the randomness with which costs increase significantly customer service is a huge issue. I always go now to the baseline facility because one-on-one, person-to-person, it's much better.
Yep.
And so I'd like you to address this cost issue, monthly cost. And the other thing is the Louisville office was closed. The Louisville office was very convenient to all your Superior Louisville customers.
Right.
Why was that closed? So cost and why was that closed?
Okay, so let me get this one and then that one if that works.
That's fine.
So what I would say on speed is there's a variety of things that impact speed. When it comes to our network, the speed that if you're a 50 meg customer, you should be getting 50 meg. The things that can impact that are varied. I mean, it can be the wiring in the home. It could be outdated modem. It could be, there's a lot of factors that go into that. So what I would say is, if you're not getting that, then that's something we should correct, or at least get some diagnoses to figure out what is contributing to that. Because we should be delivering the speed that we said we're going to deliver, which, and in most cases across the state,
Well, let's just put all
that's the
things
case.
equal and all things, no variables here, but it's a new modem, it's been checked out, the line's been checked out, so there you go. So now address that.
And Trustee Williams and I live on opposite ends of Rock Creek, and she might as well have been living in my home for the last 10 years because she's describing my same experience as
Exactly.
well. So
Yeah,
we're
so
on the
with
plus
all
of that.
things, equal and all things, all
Correct.
variables out.
That's not sure how it should be. I mean, I don't know if I have anything more to say than that. Then it's something we should correct.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah.
Now
know what
get
else
to the
to say other
customer
than that.
service part of correcting it,
Right.
which is why did you close your Louisville store?
Right. Well, and on the Louisville store, so I'd say a couple of things. One is that we changed models. I mean, so the way that those stores used to work, it was literally kind of a bolt-on to tech facilities. It became a way for people to drop off equipment and pay bills. What we found over time was that it was, from a consumer experience, it was basically like going to a DMV. It was not particularly customer friendly. The Louisville store, so just from a model standpoint, we shifted from these individual bolted onto a tech operation, usually in an industrial park, to a more sort of consumer retail-oriented model that's more regional as opposed to tech office to tech office. The other is that the Louisville store was one of the lowest traffic stores we had in the state. So that was part of the thinking, and the thought was to get to the space that we have at baseline would service the region. The other thing I would say too is that over time we've also developed a variety of other ways for people to be able to return equipment, to pay bills, try to take some of that was the bulk of what people were doing at that store. It was dropping off equipment, it was paying bills. And you can do that now at any Western Union. You can pay or drop off your equipment. You can do it through they'll send you a mailer and you can do it right from your home. You can pay online, you can pay on an app. So we've been trying to create a variety of different ways to eliminate the need to even have to go to one of those offices. But like I said, the broader strategy was to make them more regional, more retail oriented.
Okay.
I'm just going to offer my personal services offline, if you want to talk to a longtime customer who's got lots of experience, gone to all these different things.
Okay.
My viewpoints from a customer perspective are different than what you're saying right now, and I'm happy to talk with you privately if
Yeah.
it matters.
Yeah, I always appreciate the feedback, for sure. But that was the story for Louisville. And, and there was, certainly there were folks in Louisville and elsewhere who would love to have seen it maintained, but in terms of what we looked at in terms of traffic, in terms of the services provided there, we feel like we can offer something better with the baseline store.
Okay. We do need to wrap up here
Okay.
pretty quickly, so why don't you go with
Kind
your
of probably
question?
wrap it up with my questions. So you said you have 1,000 customers. Is that in all of Superior, or is that just in Rock Creek?
Superior.
And it does also, and if you don't have the answer to that, you can come back to us with
Yeah.
it. And does it exclude like the Bell, Flatirons, and the Ridge and those other places, and the Saddlebrook and all that? Because we have 4,500 households in Rock Creek, so it seems like, 1,000 customers is pretty low.
Yeah.
And I used to be a Comcast customer, but I no longer am, so I think about all the other services that are provided for cable, and that's what we're talking about here, is just cable. So my other question is, cable into the schools, so you provide just cable TV into Boulder Valley Schools?
Correct.
Into Superior?
schools.
But not the internet access?
Right, correct.
Okay. And as you heard, all of the questions, and whenever anything comes up about a franchise for Comcast, it's all related to internet. And you even showed all of our products, your products
Yeah.
that deal with the internet. And I think that you need to somehow wrap up or connect for people how this franchise for 1,000 customers for cable TV services will also benefit the people that are using Comcast for internet.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can do that here tonight, but that would be very positive if you could make the connection for all those customers that you have, the 1,000,
Right.
of how their internet is going to be improved if we continue the cable TV franchise. Not
Right.
suggesting that we're not going to, but just how's
Right.
that going to work?
Yeah, and again, I mean, they really, I think.
Well, I don't
part
think you
of-
need to answer it right now. You can probably come back to
Yeah,
us with an answer.
no, I appreciate it, but I do just want to sort of at least address one element of that, and just so we level set expectation, is that, partly why I talked about the internet is I knew that would be a lot of the questions that you have about what we do, like the services that we provide. But when it comes to the franchise, it really is about TV.
Right.
And, we can talk and try to figure out if there's some ways to think about
That's
how
the
that might
customer
be
service
connected.
portion that's missing, even though we as a town don't have responsibility or authority to talk to you about that. I mean, it's not.
To regulate it,
It's
yeah.
only, it's cable. That's all we have a franchise for, not
Right.
for the internet side of it. But that's what our residents want to know, is about the internet and how you're going to improve services. So it would behoove you to be able to communicate to those 1,000 customers you have how you're going to improve their internet service. Not so much to try and convince us to continue the franchise, but what are you going to do for them?
Got it.
Not for the town of Superior, but, our 5% of $40,000 a month revenue
Right.
that comes from those customers for cable, our 2,000 or so that we get, whatever it is. It's not a lot of money that we're talking about for that. Thank you, though.
Okay, we are
Okay.
needing to move on to our next topic. Do we feel like we need to have additional discussion on this before finalizing the franchise agreement?
Communicate with our attorney, too.
I
Right.
think it needs to be on a board agenda, so we can discuss it among ourselves.
Okay.
I think we need to have a better, clearer differentiation between the franchise cable, the cable franchise that we're talking about, and what they're going to do for their customers for internet, who are our town residents too. But that's not what we're talking about, because we're not responsible for that part of the franchise, or that part of their service, the internet side of it. So somehow we have to make this connection for the residents that are sitting here going, wait a second, I got Comcast internet and I don't like it. I got problems.
Okay,
So,
let's let
yeah.
town manager.
I was just going to say that Kendra is working with Comcast on the franchise renewal. As they continue in their negotiations, there's going to be, I would say, multiple opportunities for the board to discuss,
So let's do that. Let's
to
get on the
discuss
agenda.
not only the franchise, but other services as well.
Okay,
I agree.
okay, we appreciate
you.
the
Okay, great.
information.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
in. Okay, next is the El Dorado K.
Right, thank
review.
you. So our second item for the work session tonight is review of the master plan for a proposed park on town property located next to the El Dorado K-8 school. in the southern portion of town. The last time the board reviewed this concept was at their meeting on May 11th of this year. Staff took the comments from that meeting and incorporated them into the master plan. As well, since that time, funds have been included in the 2016 budget that would enable the town to build the entire park master plan at once, and hopefully 1 year. It may drag a little bit beyond 1 year, but we're shooting to get it all done in 1 year. The board requested an additional review of this concept plan with the incorporated changes, which were, Patrick's going to pull that up, but I'll just review them real quick. Enhance the expansive green space to the east side of the park parcel, eliminate the fitness elements from the design, eliminate all crusher-fine trails and replace with concrete trails, eliminate all reference to a single-track bike path, incorporate a shelter on the eastern edge of the parcel, incorporate a concrete walking path around the perimeter of the park, and continue the parking loop concept with possible connectivity to the Eldorado K-8 site. And then also included in this master plan is basketball court, I believe a volleyball court, and the restroom was moved to the south edge of the park near the parking loop. I think those were the significant changes that were made to this master plan. And we just open it up for board questions and discussion.
Okay, Trustee
Okay.
Jones.
One, I'm very delighted at what I see on paper here. I'm not going to waste time discussing it, but what I'm disappointed in is that it's been 6 months since the board provided this direction and 4 months since this concept plan was dated. I would have liked to have seen it earlier so there weren't potential delays if we make a change here or there. Going down the list in order of importance to me, the edge of this park is called natural landscape. And I want to be sure our definition of natural landscape is in sync on the board. You all know I live south of Colton. And what was officially called natural landscape when that PD was approved has now become pretty unkempt landscape. Whereas if you look at the April, Rita, what was the date, 24th? 27th presentation made to us by Design Concepts, natural landscape included low water grass, it included tall grass, it included natural elements in the lands, it took care. And I want to make sure we're not talking about retaining what's out there now, which is basically a serious grade of thatch. So I need an answer to that. I can.
And mud when we
and
were,
mud. Yeah, I
when it
can
rains.
go through all my elements, just whip through them. Is that what's preferred, and then let a response come through? Is that good? What we've lost in this design, and frankly, we had to because of the budget, But what's not in this design, that was in the Cadillac plan, was the sense of place. And the sense of place was there because we created so much interesting connectivity to the school. So I think that it's a good trade-off to be able to afford this park. We had to give up something. But I thought a very wonderful recommendation that came to a neighbor from me about the natural landscape was, if we do natural, why not create a sense of place by creating pockets of wildflowers in the natural so that it has a sense of place. So, and I think that can be done cheaply, and I think it can be done still within your construction plan time frame, keeping with the spirit of the natural. So I just want to throw that out there because it'd be beautiful at several times of year. And of course it would be dependent on the rainfall. I see no watering for it. I see it the same as a mountain path. Some years it's going to be more robust than other years. But anyway, that's that element. The east corner, where we have what's called the park shelter at Overlook, two of us recommended that that be there, specifically because it's a high part of the park, and we thought it would be beautiful for outdoor concerts, for weddings, whatever, as a special place, but it was to look like a special place. And I'm a little concerned about it being called a park shelter, the same as the park shelter down below. So I would like to have it addressed by staff, since we don't have a picture of that. What would it look like? Would somebody explain the proposed tree lawn along the perimeter? I don't know if that's just a row of trees or what a tree lawn is. Is it sodded or seeded in terms of the main lawn? I got from your comment, Matt, that the narrower trails that surround the multi-age net are going to be concrete as well. They're not going to be crusher fine?
Everything's concrete.
Great. I would love to see benches all over the place. You know, we need seating, and that's mine. So I'll move on to, either you can respond or we can move on to more questions.
Let's handle these as they come out.
All right. Patrick Hammer, town staff. Kind of starting there at the top, the natural landscaping will actually be irrigated native seed, which is probably a little more consistent with what you see along Colton Road on that north side, where it's actually, it's not quite a sod material, but it's an actually manicured, maintained native.
Is it mowed?
It is mowed.
Yeah, we mow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we pull up the presentation picture so we can just get, so we're all thinking about the same thing on April 27th from the board meeting?
Sure.
Do you have that?
I can probably find it.
Well, it's in the board packet. Can you pull up the board packet stuff off of this? The April 27th, 2015 board packet? The presentation was made by
Sure.
Design Concepts. I pulled it out of my iLegislate, but I don't know if you have that on there.
Do you just have it on the shared file someplace?
Okay.
Do you know where it's at, Martin?
Yeah, I know where it's at.
Look at all that work you guys do.
I know it, it's great. That you can even find it is the other, there it is, that one, 27. So was a presentation for Eldorado Park? No. This one is.
Oh, I'm sorry, there it is.
Okay, there it is. Okay, and it's page 4. Page 4.
Yep, so here's existing. And
Yeah,
then
so
this-
there, so, you know, not, this was an actual, what they explained when they presented it. This
Yeah.
is an actual someplace here in Colorado. But you look at it, it's not necessarily, well, you can see on the left-hand side here where they have green, well, that could be like the planted green lawn, and up to it are trails. And then you have this more natural grasses and tall grasses and trees and bushes. So this is a good visual, I think. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but it's more like this than along a highway, you know, along
Okay.
McCaslin and stuff. So if we're all thinking and seeing the same picture in our head, this, I remember from April 27th presentation, was a good visual. Again, don't get hung up in making it look exactly like this, but even the drawing shows trees planted in there and bushes and grasses and things like that. This is more what we're looking at than trying to leave it the way it is now and
Yeah.
have it be, and as you said, it would be irrigated and maintained in some form, not necessarily green. The green is more like the center court
Right.
area, and then the rest of it is the look that will be
Mhm.
all around it.
The town hasn't adopted standards of Rock Creek native seed mix for these specific type uses, where
Yeah.
we've got the manicured native spaces. So that site will be completely cleared and grubbed down to nothing, and irrigation will go in. That portion will be seeded, but to kind of go down, jumping ahead a little bit, that's the interior. This right now is sodded.
Oh, great.
It's
Excellent.
budgeted in for sod to go in.
Okay.
Kind of onto the next one, I think the wildflower planting is something that can definitely be incorporated fairly easily. This up here, in all of the discussions with design concepts, is more of a pergola, maybe a little bit larger, maybe a wood style. They just happen to not have the icon to kind of
Okay.
show that,
Mhm.
but it'll be a little bit larger open air with the more slatted kind of roof, if you will. Benches are in this plan.
So there wouldn't be a roof on it. It would
Yeah,
be
there would.
slatted, so.
Like a
you-
pergola style is what we've got in there right now.
But
It wouldn't protect you from rain.
or sun.
Well, pergola does.
Well, you're slatted,
Unless
so
it's
you.
directly overhead.
Yeah.
Her point's well made.
Mhm.
The walls, upper walls have to come down a certain distance not to be burned up. But design
As
concepts
long as
should know
it's
some
large
of
enough
this.
and it can be used for kind of a smaller,
Mhm.
medium-sized event kind of a thing. A lot of people think if they're gonna come to a shelter or something that they think is a shelter, they would have a roof on it, not, slats.
It doesn't have a roof at the top?
No, he said it's a
Pergola.
pergola, it's got
Pergola has
slats.
slats.
Was what we had noted down, but those are items. that
Those are
could be
just, yeah, that
changed.
can be,
Yeah, well, it's
Modified.
significant, because if you have if we were to have a outdoor wedding planned, and there's a threat of rain,
It's a
a
bad
roof
decision.
matters.
That's a bad thing.
Yeah, so I'm glad you
can't
caught
predict the
that. I
weather,
never
though, so
caught, I had a certain vision of a pergola. That's why I'd like to see a picture of this structure at some point, so it hits you in the face what it is and what it's not, because I think it's easy to have different expectations.
Hey, Sandy, did I get to all those?
What's
Was it-
that tree lawn? What does that mean?
Tree lawn, pretty typical, just kind of row of buffered trees, if you will.
like along any street, you'll
and,
have
yeah,
a lawn,
boulevard
and then
trees,
trees
kind of
planted
a
in it, yeah.
Really kind of straight line of delineating plant material.
So
among
where the
trees.
tree border is that gonna be mowed grass, or is that gonna be
Right.
unmowed?
Right now, it'll be consistent with this native, which will be the manicured mowed and
Okay.
irrigated native.
Can I ask a question? So the parking lot and the connection to Boulder Valley School District, did we ever get an answer back from them, how they're participating in
Yeah.
that?
They currently don't have funds to participate or pay a portion of the loop road and parking. And they can't commit to anything because funds wouldn't be available until 2018, if at all, so.
Out of their $550 million
Mark's
tax
been working
increase?
hard with them, trying to convince them that this makes sense for them to contribute to and participate in, and they just aren't able to do that.
Okay, well, I think just continue to work hard on them, because we just all raised our taxes just so that they can collect.
Yeah, it's something that, even if we revisit with them in 2018, we will not let it go,
Yeah,
so.
right, okay, thank you.
That's a slap in the face, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
That's a huge slap.
We're getting pencil sharpeners.
Well, I mean, the whole loop is for them and
Patrick's-
for their traffic, so,
Patrick and his staff are working on a GOCO grant. They've given us a letter of support at least for that, but.
Thank you.
I mean, it
but,
wasn't in their list of projects for that school, so that's probably what they're struggling with, is they had this many dollars for this many projects,
And
and
it's-
here's,
Yeah.
here's
The
another
other-
project,
It's a lot of
so-
deferred
It's
maintenance.
off-site,
on
it's not
buildings
on their property, which is another technicality that they.
well, maybe we should,
We are
put
aware.
a sign and say, no,
School use.
no school use.
Well, that'll only
Well, but
be
it's-
negative
that's
to
why
our
we're that's
revenue.
Yeah,
why
the
we're
purpose
doing
of
I
it.
this
know,
is for
but
the
I mean, we're
safety of our
spending a lot
kids,
of money
so-
here for this.
I certainly don't have an issue with it, and I never thought that Boulder
Yeah.
Valley School District would be participating in
I
this. but-
agree. And plus, we've talked about this numerous times, but do we have it anywhere in writing that park users can park on the school parking lot? You know, that's been presumed, that some overflow can be in the school parking
Outside of
lot.
school hours?
Mhm. Outside of school hours,
I would
like on the
think so.
weekend. But let's make sure they don't put a sign up
Yeah, right.
that says not for park use. So I'd like to see that
Well, they
in
did,
writing.
they did indicate support for doing this, and they were going to see if they could help in any way. So
Yeah,
now,
but
you know,
there's
the
not-
obvious is
Well,
that they
you
did.
know, a 50,000, 100,000 would have been a nice little gesture.
Yeah, well, they'll keep working it. Maybe they'll get something.
While we are talking about the loop, I don't count 45 spaces unless we have parallel parking on that south edge. Is that what those little hash marks?
There's parallel parking on the south edge, that's correct, yep.
Okay, additional questions, okay.
So I'll just disclose that I live near here. And I too agree, I want to make sure that the native seed and the unirrigated areas are not just whatever is out there now, and where you walk and ride in it and you've got these burrs on your feet, on your dog, on your bike. I just want to make sure that's not what we're getting here. And I think the wildflowers are a great idea, so I'd like to see that as well. First of all, the sand volleyball pit, how close is that? What is the buffer between the homes from their edge of the fence to the sand volleyball pit? How many feet is that?
You know, I don't have the exact measurement with,
Sorry, it looks like it's about, probably 50 to 100 feet, somewhere in between there.
Do we know for sure?
Well, I've got the scale here, but I don't have a ruler or anything,
Okay.
so I'm looking at it.
Someone,
and
But
we could easily follow up.
yeah, let's
once
just
we-
find that out so
Yeah.
that we are,
And
respectful for those folks that live there.
And that'll be down below, right? It drops,
So
so
we'll- okay.
it drops down too.
Yeah, it's just the only area right there that is, so close to those homes.
Sure.
Let's just be respectful of that. I was going to say, and I guess I'm not so sure about this now, but the connection to the school, the concrete walkway, I think that we should incorporate that into what we're doing here. We're already doing concrete around, the whole park, that at the very least, we could do from the loop to the corner of the school there, because there is a connection right there that you could come in right on there. Do you know it? Right there where you got your little hand? There is a way to connect right into there, where the walkway that goes towards the front, that you wouldn't need to create the other part that goes to the street, because there is already one as it is, and we can just come back and later revisit whether we need that.
Revisit the piece to the street.
Correct.
But that, to me, looks more like a regional trail amenity where, if you're walking around the neighborhood and you want to
Well, currently.
maybe not walk through the school property.
Well, actually, currently, you don't go through the school property. You go through, can you draw the hand here where the school is, on the corner where the parking lot is, down where the parking lot is?
In the front?
In the front.
Mhm.
There's a walkway from the street right up there, and
Right.
it goes all the way back and around, and you do not feel like you're encroaching on their property. You ride your bike, you can walk and skateboard there. So that's what I'm talking about, that, doubling that, doing another one may not be necessary for right now. We can revisit
Right.
it when it becomes a social trail.
Is that concrete too?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And so you're proposing getting rid of from that corner to the street?
Yep, yep.
I would agree. if it means putting a roof on the pergola,
Well, this is only listed as a potential school connection, right?
But I mean, so,
Yeah, just that little piece.
but that short piece, exactly, Patrick,
yeah, yeah.
that short piece there could be something we could do now while or when we're doing the concrete walkways, that short piece there. And then later revisit whether we need that to go further. So that's my thought on that. Let's see, hold on. The walkway and the bikeway along Indiana, it's kind of separated.
Mhm.
What happens with that when we have the parking there?
There's no parking there.
on Indiana.
When we have the
Oh.
parking? When there's going to be parking there, right?
No.
No, that's not what it shows there. It shows bump outs of parking. It actually, I thought I even read that.
There's,
It did in a previous one,
Okay.
but it's
and
been
just to kind
dropped.
of go back and prior to, I think the board had some interest in if we had a large event such as a wedding or a gathering, that there was an opportunity to have that on-street parking on Indiana as.
When we do the road repair.
Yeah, it says here,
Right.
street trees along parallel parking
Right.
lanes.
But if I
Oh, along
misunderstood that,
parallel.
that's something that could easily be removed.
Huh.
But I thought there might have been some desire to,
Okay.
in terms of a larger event or a concert in the
If,
park. to
if
have
we
it.
were to do, I mean, that's something we can look at, but my thought on that is we can look at that as part of the street improvement project, or a street project when we do a mill and overlay or
When we get
something,
there.
like we did at Indiana.
Okay, well, let's
next to
not
Superior Elementary.
lose the walkway, bikeway.
To refresh, if we did it now, we would have some mammoth cost in a retaining wall, as we dug into that Indiana frontage there. So I think that's why we dropped it and just decided to defer.
Okay, trustee Cabarrus.
Just a quick question. So Matt, you said this whole project will take a year, maybe a little bit over a year to complete. Do we have a definitive day to begin construction?
Well, Patrick and his staff will be working in December to try to get an RFP out in December so that we can get a construction contract back to the board, hopefully in January. You know, kind of pushing them on this, but if we can get it back to the board in January, then they can mobilize and maybe get started in the spring.
In the spring?
And have all spring and summer to start construction on this park. So-
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. And
Okay.
Get-
Is there anyone in the public that, we'll still circle back to a few
Okay.
questions, but if anyone in the public wants to comment, let's get that in.
I know, but one very important thing needs to be said.
Good evening, I'm Jim Payne, a Superior resident, former ProStack member when a lot of this was developed. I just want to make two comments. On the school participation, the original concept was that knowing that the school has always pushed back on contributing to traffic-related issues, but the original concept was that we were going to pursue with them the artificial turf field on the other side of the school.
That's true.
And that was supposed to be the quid pro quo, if you will. And then I would just from hearing you discuss the pergola, I'm hearing different things. My experience would be to define that, because every other major park has a pavilion, not just a shelter, but, and you know, we're looking at this at Purple Park, and these are hugely popular. And beyond the recreational aspects of everything else, that's the thing that's going to give you the community piece.
I agree.
So I think eventually you're going to want to, if not initially, eventually you're going to want to have a pavilion there, which would be at least 20 by 20, if not bigger, like the one that's being considered for Purple Park. So you can't do it initially, plan for it. It took us 15 years to get it in Purple Park. It took us 8 years to get it in Founders.
Right.
But I would think about that. But if you do that, if that's really what you want, then you've got to think of location, because it's key that you have access near parking. You don't want to have people who are doing something there to have to traipse all the way across. So
So it needs to be this one right there.
On this side.
So, Jim, you raise a good point. The one up top, we need dimensions. I mean, we're working totally in the dark. It's the first I knew that it didn't have a roof. I mean, I always thought it would have a roof. It needs a roof.
Right.
We can't have violinists there getting rained on because it's a surprise storm. I am very glad for your reminder on the popularity of the Purple Park Pavilion, because I don't know, what are the dimensions of this little blue dot down south?
Purple Park doesn't have the pavilion.
Or
Well,
what,
it's looking, but there's a plan to,
what is,
but it-
what is the dimension here? 12 by 12, 10 by 10?
well, I think there's a, I'm not the one, maybe
Uh,
Patrick.
Patrick's
I'm just saying,
coming up.
It looks like I just detect a definitional
Yeah,
issue
there
that I
is a
think you ought to work out.
definitional
Let-
issue.
well, Thank you for the comments. We need to wrap it up here shortly.
How
Do you have
big
a
is the
comment, too?
pavilion?
This is a 20
Okay.
by 20, a larger
Oh, okay,
pavilion
good.
consistent with the size of Founder's Park.
Okay.
The one down
Okay.
here by
Okay,
the
let's get-
parking lot.
Let's get
thank
Kurt's
you.
comments and then,
Hi, I'm Kirk Anderson, 3236 Opal Lane. So to a point earlier about the sand volleyball court, I live right here, and so I was concerned about that distance. And it to me in this heat, it looked like about 30 feet or so. And I mean, that's
Stand by the mic.
come by the
Thank
mic.
you.
that's less than the width of this room. So I'm just a little bit concerned that I'm going to have volleyballs in my
Yeah.
yard.
You keep one.
Sorry, say play keeper, but I just want to see, is there a potential of moving that court to somewhere into the green lawn or next to the basketball court, so it's a little bit closer to some of those other
Mhm.
activities?
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
We'll take a
Does it
look.
make sense
We
to
can
have it
take a
next
look
to the
at that.
basketball?
Yeah.
That seems like an easy
Yeah.
one.
You know, that's
Yeah,
my
it's
concern.
a
The oth-
no-brainer.
The other point too is the potential of noise. Because I live right there, the school acts as a huge sounding board, the wall of that school, so anything that goes on in that area bounces off the school and gets directed right towards the houses. It's weird, because I can clap and I can hear my name, there's a huge echo right off of that school. So I'm just worried about any noise that's in the park. I know there's probably nothing I can do about that, but basketballs, bang, 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 that I can just see that all day long, just being a noise violation or noise hazard for any of those houses that are along there.
Oh, wait, I think the intent is to try to buffer some of that with some
Some
trees.
trees,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the other concern. I see a number of trees that are along there. How high are those going to be? Because right now, as I look out, I have great city views, and now all of a sudden it's like they're going to be high, they're going to be not high
Yeah.
enough.
They'll
You
be
know,
higher
those type
than
of
you
things.
want.
They probably will. So I just wanted to know, what do those trees represent from a height?
But they're not a wall. They're,
No.
No, but they
Right.
block views.
And the way
Sure.
trees grow here, it'll be forever.
Yeah, exactly,
Well,
exactly.
Well, if you don't want any
Forever
behind your
for
house,
what?
just, we'll leave that
Before they're
space
tall.
blank and put the trees where other
Sure.
people
Yeah, well, I
want
just wanted to know what those would look
And
like.
we do a lot of ornamental trees, which tend to be the smaller
Mhm.
trees.
Okay.
At full size.
Sure. And then the last one I have is the drive-in. Our neighbors are concerned that that does kind of come farther back into their somewhat backyard. I didn't know if there's any design that would push that I would say the rounding out closer towards the street. I don't know if there's
It was a
anything that
function
can be
of
done.
the natural grade right now, and it's trying to maximize
Yeah, that's probably
what we
not gonna
get given the
change.
natural
Sure.
grade.
Okay.
So
We can move the volleyball court though for sure next to
Yeah,
that. If we
definitely
can do
that
that,
needs to be
that we
moved.
can do.
Sure.
out. It's too close. I
So,
would,
so if the school, if part of this original design, I remember coming in here and doing the little sketches and cutouts and everything, and that teardrop design and everything was for the school, and if the school's not going to participate with costs for that, and all of a sudden this becomes the new Hug and Go, what is the repercussions for the school? Is that something we can go back and say, hey, this can no longer be the Hug and Go? Who's going to police
Well,
that?
In
You got a
that-
great
Okay,
point.
why don't we, thank you,
Yeah, I'm
thank you
done.
for the comments. Why don't we, I know we've got a few more comments on this. Could we add this onto the regular meeting at the end, just a little add-on to kind of wrap these comments up, because we don't want to leave some of this hanging, and would like to keep things moving
Just
forward
to
as well.
finish that thought, so it's
We need
not
to work
lost.
past
We're right at 7 o'clock, so
Okay.
let's
I'll
just.
make a
let's
note
add
to
that.
myself to
Write
finish
that thought down.
Yeah.
Does that sound acceptable? Okay, so let's adjourn the work session, and then is everybody ready to, everybody ready to start? Just
Yes, go ahead.
plow right on through and start on time. Okay, call to order the Town of Superior Board of Trustees. Hold on. Call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees, the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors, the Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan Board of Directors, District Board of Directors, and the Superior Urban Renewal Authority Board of Commissioners for November 9th, 2015. Do we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Clint Folsom,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams,
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli,
Here.
Rita Dozell,
Here.
Elia Gregoris,
Here.
Chris Hansen,
Here.
Sandy Pennington,
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley,
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry,
Here.
Town Clerk Lois Serling.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda, and we just discussed adding some additional follow-up discussion on the El Dorado Park as the last item on the agenda. Is that
Or
acceptable?
we can talk about your questions, and maybe we can do it then too.
I think let's just move it to the end if that's acceptable.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay.
I have 12E I'd like to discuss from the consent agenda.
Okay, you want to pull that? Okay.
Which one, 12B?
E.
Okay. Anyone else have any changes to the agenda? Anything to pull?
Make a motion to approve the agenda except for 12E.
Okay. Motion by trustee Gagora, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, next is reports, questions, and issues. Who would like to start? Trustee Pennington.
Just to gripe a bit. I was unhappy that the board retreat was canceled after having been planned for a long time. We haven't had a retreat in 6 months, and who knows how long it's going to be before we can agree on another date.
We have a date.
Is it for sure December 2nd?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm having to cancel a full day of activity to be there, and I actually planned my vacation to be back for the board retreat. So what I would suggest is I certainly understand the desire to have all of us there, but that is so difficult. And before we cancel the December 2nd retreat because somebody cannot be there for illness or travel or whatnot, could we at least send an email to the board asking us because otherwise we're not going to have a retreat for a year or a year and a half. So I know I've missed a retreat. I
have not had any retreats where not all 7 board members are
Really?
present.
I thought I missed one.
It's something that I think it's not productive for staff, because you have one person missing, and they could have completely different views that
Right.
may alter the discussion
Right.
or
I get that.
direction.
I get that, but I also think we need to have them more frequent than once every 7 months, which is what's happened here. It becomes unproductive not to have them often enough. So maybe we discuss that at the December 2nd retreat, okay? What to do about that issue. Attended the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner. That's a great event. Staff did a great planning job, and a lot of people attended. We just got out of a Traffic and Safety Committee meeting that I think was very important. Ely, I'll let you go over those.
can do-
No,
okay.
that's okay. You do them all. And I wanted to compliment Kendra on this memo you put out. I found it to be extremely helpful with all those alternatives and stuff in there. I've gotten a complaint about the condition of the Sagamore sign. And frankly, I didn't get around there to see it myself. The entrance to Sagamore sign is aged, apparently beyond what a resident felt should be. So I'm just throwing that out there. Can we take a look at that? And then a lot has been made of various communities' successful effort in the recent election to lift the curb on local broadband. And Kendra, in your report, Could you just give us a quick thing? Is there any application to us in that or not? I don't know enough about the whole broadband issue, but.
So, yeah, a number of cities have taken to the residents an election question to be able to partner to provide broadband service or provide it themselves. We have a money budgeted in the 2016 budget for a study to determine what type of broadband service we might be able to provide, how much it would cost, and whether you want to take it to a vote in 2016.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Okay, Trustee Cooper.
I also attended the volunteer appreciation dinner, very well attended. And what I really enjoyed and appreciated was, I think the majority of the Youth Leadership Council was there. It could have been the free food, I'm not sure. But it was just great to see these kids, become one with some of the older folks in town that are volunteers. So that was great. And also attended the youth meeting with Lori, who's doing a phenomenal job, basically. And we did we gathered over 1,000 pounds of candy for the troops, like treats for troops. We had 98 bags right here, and I think there's a picture that Martin took. The kids were so excited, just to divide them between chocolate and non-chocolate candy. And he was like, and they consumed some of it, but the majority of them they bagged. So it was just great, and what a great event. And I hope that this becomes, if the board would support it, a yearly event around Halloween.
Hopefully, we don't have troops dispatched.
But
in war
troops will be
zones.
dispatched somewhere. So I think
That
it's
long.
just a great thing.
Mhm.
I've never seen the kids more excited to be part of something that's much larger than them, and it's much larger than the town of Superior or even Colorado that this goes. So highly would recommend that. As for the Transportation and Safety Committee, we had a robust meeting with Trustee Williams and Trustee Pennington. So a couple of items. Once again, the Waldona cut through to 88th, and the absence of anyone monitoring those three stop signs that are not even yield signs, I would say. People slow down but roll through them consistently every single day, all three of these signs. We've tried to mitigate it. I used to live on Waldona right on the corner. It's one of the reasons why we moved from there, because it's not safe. Is there a way to talk to the sheriff and see if we can get more frequent attendance to those stop signs?
So they occasionally go out and
Very occasionally, though.
but there's really no spot for them to sit.
That's not true, though.
And
I can tell you exactly where to sit because I got a ticket 10 years ago.
Okay. All right. Well, send me that location and I'll send it to Sergeant Chamberlain.
It's
I mean, I
Idalia,
think,
right? And what are the three?
Elmora.
Elmora. If you pull back a little bit, those cars go through the stop sign. If they're sitting on those streets, they can nab all these people. On Akron and Waldona, if you're parked towards the cul-de-sac of Waldona, to the left, and just park there, people will just make that right and keep making that right. Those are such easy tickets. And I think if they enforce it for like 2 weeks straight, we would see a major improvement. The cut-through, I don't think there's anything we can do about it. Most kids that go to Monarch, if they're coming down from other parts of Rock Creek, that's how they're gonna get to 88th, so I don't think
During
that's gonna change.
the discussion, the committee felt like additional active enforcement was.
I mean,
We're going to throw it to the board.
you could go ahead.
No,
Speak up.
I want the board. We were there. Do you guys have an opinion on more active
Sure.
stop sign
That's
enforcement
usually
on
how
Waldona?
that's usually
If
how you
there's stop
affect
signs, they
behavior,
ought to be
so yes.
enforced.
Temporarily.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, if you do consistently, people start getting tickets there, they're gonna know, okay, now I really have to stop with those stop signs. Cars don't even stop. I cut through take my kids to Peek to Peek.
But
I
you
admit
stop.
that part, but I stopped.
But you know-
And school buses are there picking up little kids around, 7:15. People go around them.
That
Like,
should be
the school bus have the
enforced
stop
big
sign, that goes out, and they don't stop.
time. That should be enforced.
So I don't know, and it's pretty tight, you got
Yeah,
cars on both
I
sides
know.
parking, and you have the school bus, so I don't think that's right, so.
This has been an issue for more than 15 years.
At least 15
So
years.
you
Forever.
put somebody, put the patrol there, and they patrol for 6 months, and then they leave. I mean, people are just gonna go back to the same habits. I think you
Okay.
have to change the habits.
Well, why can't it be on a rotation? That
Well,
it,
Randomly.
they do it once every such and such.
One day a week, maybe, just spend the morning there and, see what happens.
Well, anyway.
Okay, that's my suggestion.
Okay. Any
Well,
other?
the second one has to do with original town in Coal Creek right here. So up until now, we've heard, the one side that says, again, too much traffic through here, sometimes construction, traffic going through. Today, we have 4 individuals that share their thoughts, and they're like, do not restrict Coal Creek. This has been basically Main Street for original town for 60 years. That's how people go up and down, so we heard a completely different point of view.
Well, I don't think it's ever been intended to restrict from original town.
Currently it is.
Well,
More so than we've
this
ever
is the discussion we
before.
want to have.
I
Then.
don't
Yeah, there's,
understand that.
there's been discussion about not allowing cars to turn on Coal Creek off of
Actually,
McCaslin and go up.
That's not the issue. The issue right now, it says that no construction traffic, can go through this area, Coal Creek.
Okay.
Well, that means, the Kuffners, that's their business, they have to come down that way. They feel that, why are we restricting that street and sending, construction traffic down 76 for those homeowners? Now they have to deal with it. So you're just throwing it to somebody else, and I'm sure Sagamore is gonna complain and say, oh, there's so much construction traffic coming down our street. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense. You're gonna be upsetting somebody based on what you're doing here.
And I think there was some kind of request perhaps to do a traffic study here on Coal Creek. I think we should not waste our money and Alex's time doing that. But that's my personal opinion, I think.
Well, the study was intended to be more of a
Yes.
larger look at traffic circulation in and around original town.
That's right.
Right.
With,
Yep.
to come up with
So
some
not just Coal
recommendations.
Creek.
No, it's
Correct.
because there's so many, there's 6 new homes that are off of, what's the street?
Fourth.
Maple?
Yeah.
Maple.
So those homes, there's potential for new homes, but also the whole Coal Creek Crossing development. I'm not so concerned about the construction traffic, although I don't live on that street, but I'm more concerned about the long-term implications of
And
all the traffic, the
construction
build-out
traffic
and all
will
that.
end, right?
Yeah,
When they build it this
construction
next summer,
traffic
by
will
next
end.
summer, the construction
It'll
traffic
be
is
done,
Right.
but there's gonna be more people living in there, in original town, so I think that we
Yeah.
do need to understand what the long-term effect of that's
The
gonna be.
But
other
should we
point
wait
that
until
was,
that happens, though?
Well, we can do projections, I mean, we do projections all over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
Well,
they're
we
planning
had
on
the
doing it until
projections
after
when-
Okay, why don't-
sometime after the first year
Why don't
anyways.
we, I'm sure we're gonna be talking about the traffic study at some point in the future, so why don't we continue this?
were we
We're
intending?
not-
We're kinda getting off into a
Wait, can I
traffic
just say
study
something?
discussion here.
We did get traffic projections when we approved the development.
Right.
So we do have data.
But what's happened on Coal Creek, and that why you can't study it now, is all of the McCaslin stuff has increased the traffic on Coal Creek.
Exactly. I'd rather wait until next summer,
Yeah.
when we're done with 36, done with the interchange, and
But
we're
I-
done with the Remington
I
homes,
agree.
and then do it.
Can we put this on the December 2nd agenda too? Because several points were made. One, chronic problem on Castle Peak. Why can't we have a traffic study on Castle Peak?
Let's
And the other
discuss that
point
with our
that was
chief.
made
Okay.
was that necessarily, just via proximity to Superior Marketplace and with a major new park, there, the expectation is there is more traffic. And now we've got a new subdivision.
Yeah.
So if we could maybe put on the,
Well,
Agenda for
when the
more
marketplace,
conversation.
when the marketplace was initially opened, the road patterns were designed to not have marketplace traffic go through Coal Creek. And-
well,
And that has always been the intent, to end It just picked it up because of this. And
December 2nd, maybe?
Is there still an issue, though, with the construction traffic?
Well,
Nobody here complained about it.
No,
No.
because there's a sign now.
And we've asked the sheriff's office, Sergeant Chamberlain, to go
Okay.
out and monitor Coal Creek and issue tickets if they see them on
Okay,
there.
so the residents that were concerned about it before, it's okay for them now?
well, we don't know that.
I don't know about that.
They were
I
not
don't know
here
about
today.
that, but-
Oh,
Yeah.
They did
But I
not
mean,
attend.
One
we
sheriff
have
said,
asked
no, there's not an issue.
for additional enforcement
okay.
on Coal Creek.
Anyway, we should discuss this more in a second. I'm
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
take so much time. It's Deborah.
Okay. I'm going to run through quickly on a few things, but then save the longest or biggest issue at the end. I went to the volunteer dinner last week, and that was great. I had to leave early, unfortunately. I went on a library tour. We went to see Netherland Library. Great little library. Came away with a few things. One, it's a little small for us. And two, we want to think outside the book, not the box, the book. A little bit more so than Netherland did. So there's a couple of other libraries that we'd like to see. One is, I think, Thornton, called the Anythink, Wright Farms or something like that. So there are a few libraries that we need to go see.
Berthoud, I think, was the other.
And the Berthoud. So we'll reserve until we see those as far as discussing it further. I went to a Louisville Joint Issues. If you want to know more, contact me offline, but I'm going to run through this quickly. I had a First Fridays, and I had a few visitors. 2 issues were brought up, the library mill levy and the daycare, home daycare. And first of all, the library mill levy, I just want to make sure that in order to, there's no sunset on that, correct? So it's in perpetuity.
Well,
No?
not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
It's specifically to fund library services in Louisville. If we were to open our own library.
Do we have to go to the voters, in other words?
Yes, to reappropriate that tax for our own purpose. Like if we opened our own library and
Right.
wanted to use that, we would have to ask the voters to use that.
Can we open up our own library annex and not have to ask? Is there ever a
No,
scenario like
The mill
that?
levy would go away. It would expire at that point.
We could open it, but we wouldn't have the mill levy to support it.
Right.
To support the new annex.
Right.
Okay. So, so the library and mill levy in Louisville has to be dealt with some way, shape, or form, should we decide on a library annex. Okay. Because
Right, yes.
one of the residents came in and wanted to make sure that we wouldn't be ending it, that it would possibly be a partnership that we could continue should we get an annex.
Joint?
So, you know, I obviously I can't influence that right now because it's not something that we have in front of us, but it certainly should be something on the discussion when we talk about annexing or having an annex for a library, that we also talk about what we're doing with the Louisville Library. That's our mill levy there, okay. So they go together, in other words. I just kind of wanted to make sure of that. And then the daycare, I know we've visited this, and I know everyone's kind of tired of it. However, I want to find out, is the board interested in going from 6 to 8 children in a home daycare situation? I know we didn't want to go to 12 kids, but currently our code says that it's 6. So what was the history about discussing expanding it to 8?
Why are you bringing that up?
Because that was one of the residents who came forward. And so I want to understand why we shut that down.
Can we do that at the
So-
retreat?
Well, the quick answer was parking.
And
Or-
backyard noise.
2 more kids? Two more kids?
Pick a number.
Traffic.
You're not going to get an argument from me. I was for increasing it to any.
Right, I was too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
8. Yeah.
But it's backyard noise too with these small.
2 more
yards.
kids.
I think we need
Okay,
to ask
so
a
yeah.
question,
So-
though, for licensing. I think it's 6
There's-
plus 2 of your own kids, isn't it?
No.
I have a
No,
memo on
it's
it.
No,
not.
it's the
No.
two, or your two own, it's 6 total.
It's just 6 total.
Yeah.
Even with
I
2
have a
of
whole
your
memo
own?
on this that I can find and send to the board.
Let's revisit
Okay.
the
But
memo.
let's revisit it in terms of discussing expanding to 8, not 12.
Let's
And
consider
why we
whether
are
or
shooting
not
that
to
down or not
expand.
shooting it down.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And then also, can we couple that with what, if we decided to do that, what would the HOA need to do? I know that's not your bailiwick, but somehow that.
Is it a
that
Rock
needs-
Creek request?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And so I'd like to also understand, I mean, if we do this at the municipal level, what happens at the HOA level?
Last time we discussed this was 2013, and we did get comments from the HOA with
I know.
regard to this, so,
Right.
yeah.
But that,
We'll
we
provide
weren't
that to you as
discussing
well.
expanding it to 8, we were discussing expanding it to 12, as I recall,
No, we were discussing expanding it to
expanding
anything.
to anything.
It was any-
Okay.
it was
But,
any-
I mean, let me, not anything, but possibly to 10. I think we even talked about 8, but it was shot down to keep it as it
Bed and
is.
breakfast for
I
children.
think what's gonna happen, though, is a year from now, a different board up here, you're gonna have somebody that says, oh, well, you did 8, why don't we go to 10? Because now we have a request for 10. So at some point, we have to set the
Well-
limits.
Yeah, we
I'm not
can't-
saying it's 6, I'm just
But
saying that we have to set
you
limits.
can go to the state and get a license for 8, and a license for 12, and a license for 6. And here we are as a municipality saying, you can only do 6.
But it's a
Right.
It's not
homeowned
quite, I mean,
business.
there's
It's not-
more, it's more involved than that, but I would be happy to resend the memo so you have the
Okay.
legal
It would be
background
good
and
to
then.
know it, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
We
All
are
right.
aware.
And there was a Louisville Library Makerspace opening, grand opening. I did not make that, but I got a report on it. And it was a huge success. There were a lot of people there. Everyone's very excited about this makerspace. I don't know
What
if
is
anyone.
one? What's a
Okay, a
makerspace?
makerspace is a space where you can go and actually create things, whether it be
Art or craft or.
art or craft or 3D modeling of something on the computer, or they had here cell phone holograms, robots, Arduino circuitry kits, so that you can actually create some sort of, electrical engineering project or something like that. You can do, I can't remember if there is, wood shop or not, but
Yeah.
it is. Well, some of them do, but I don't know if they have it there. I don't know if it was big enough. But anyway, great success. Check it out if you are into, making something interesting. Yeah, okay, whatever. All right.
Okay. Trustee
Yep,
Hess.
nothing to report.
Trustee Israeli.
Well, same as trustee Williams, I echo her comments on the Nettleton Library visit. It was nice, and visiting a couple more when we can would be beneficial to all of us. It was particularly beneficial to see what was too small. It was obvious something was too small, and, get other feels for it.
How many square feet?
That was 5,000.
Just under.
Yeah. And the volunteer appreciation dinner was I thought a real home run.
Really great, yeah.
Yeah. And not just because all the trustees spoke, but that was probably the main reason.
That was fun, actually.
It was.
Yeah.
And
And
I-
you told us we were just supposed to stand and support you, not talk, so.
And then you recruited us
Little
to speak.
trick.
I said, I said,
Funny little tricky dick you.
I told staff that Pennington had to talk, because my comment was, I don't want to talk unless nobody else has agreed. And the final thing was the joint committee meeting with trustee Williams. It was an interesting meeting. We'll have a couple of things coming up from them, where I think there's a wastewater overflow IGA coming. That isn't, I don't think, won't require too much brain power. What will require more brain power, and they'll be asking us really this coming winter if we're in or out, rather than spend more time, is on the wastewater coordination. And so we'll be getting briefings from staff and stuff. It's gonna be a big decision, and it'll involve a lot, so.
And basically, that's about whether we actually meet code for federal code. Isn't that what it is? Yeah, so that.
standards,
Their new standards,
Yep.
so that's a lot of money on our side, and if we're going to partner with Louisville, and obviously we would not be spending that kind of money, but we would not have a facility that is federally,
Yeah.
Up to snuff.
I'd, rather than,
yeah.
I think staff will present it to us, who will know, because it's gonna be a big choice. And it's kind of a preliminary, like, do you want to keep going down this road? Or do you definitely not want to do it? kind of
Well, yeah,
thing.
there's a consultant working on this for both communities, and they're coming up with a recommended option and what the rates might be, and and that's what'll come back to the board to look at.
But I think what I was sort of picking up was that we would get out of the business, maybe.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to go back.
So that's a big decision.
But we had one presentation on this already. so
Yeah,
it
but this
was
is
just a
further
continuation
developed.
Yeah,
and-
it's just
of it,
continuation of that.
It's a kind of, there's really one way of going where it only makes sense, but we'd have to be all in on it.
Mhm.
So we're at a fork in the road. We have to make a decision one way or the other, and we can't come back.
As Yogi said, when you come to the fork in the road, take it.
Yeah, we're in the fork of the sewer line, huh? Okay.
Nothing further.
Okay, I too attended the Volunteer Appreciation Day, and I got roped into speaking because Joe didn't want to do it all by himself. But it was great. It was an excellent evening, and I attended Mayor Pro Tem Williams' First Friday. I love going to those events and talking with people there. I assume we have the library discussion or on the December 2nd retreat?
Mhm.
Okay, because we had talked about that before, and thinking outside the book, I would like us to talk about it, and we'll talk about this some more, is that the idea of the community space and how we use that, along with the possibility of using the library in the way that the presentations that we had from Colorado State Library people and the Louisville Library person and the other woman that was here too, is that, because the words that we talked about before, I know, Matt, we've talked about, and I mentioned this, Deborah, at your First Friday, was that they never used the word read a book or library. They said it's a space to create, inspire, gather, communicate, and it's for residents as well as small businesses. So that's what we should be talking about instead of saying library annex, because that's old world to me, old book to me, and we should be talking more, how do we create that community space that we've already committed to in the town center or someplace else possibly, but how do we create that space to gather and inspire and create and do all those kind of things. Now, the other thing that I would like to maybe have a process discussion too at the retreat is all around the idea of process for making changes to approved documents or contracts. And I know we have, Kendra has mentioned that she's presented a proposed change to our municipal code, Chapter 16, to add a 60-day signature requirement after approval of like a PDF or FDP, FDP or PDP. So now we'll get them signed in a timely manner. Otherwise, our approval expires. I mean, every contract has that, where you've got so much time to accept this and get it done and get it signed. And that's going through the planning commission, and then it'll come back to us. But there's also more process things I think we should talk about, is things like, and these are maybe more process, not code related, I believe. The applications or contracts must be complete before they get scheduled at a PC or town board meeting, a planning commission or town board meeting. I mean, I'm just throwing these out off the top of my head. I'd like to talk about these at the at our retreat. Applications or contracts for consideration before the planning commission or town board must be submitted to staff and attorney at a minimum of Monday before the meeting. We have that, I think, as a process now, but we're not following it in every case. We don't get some of these documents or contracts until like a day or two before they're supposed to come out, or maybe the day of the packet. And we need to stick to a real process so we can get these documents in time to actually do review, a good review. Any changes to approved documents have to be documented or redlined as to what the changes were on that page. We get things and we go, wait a second, there's 15 pages here, but what things changed? And we need to be more consistent in making sure that the red line or the changes are shown. And I think that when we send out agendas, we need to do a better job of describing what it is that's going to be reviewed or discussed at the meeting. Because the letter that went out for the PD plan Amendment 3 was incomprehensible to the residents, a few residents that went to mean, what is it that's going to be reviewed? You know, what is changing? What are we going to review? So those things need to happen. And drawings and documents have to include the date that they were presented and to whom, you know, which body were they presented to, because we had trouble trying to figure out when was it presented, who was it presented to, who approved it. Comment sections on documents should show, and these are more of the long sheets, you know, kind of things, should show the date, not only the date, but also who provided the comments. Because now it just says Tom comments. Well, what, who, what, how did that happen? And approved and proposed documents and drawings should be available online. It's not always clear where to find them. So these are just some process areas that I think we need to nail down and make sure that we follow them more consistently, and we can talk about them in more detail at our retreat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do my announcements. On October 28th, I went to the Colorado Department of Transportation's Transportation Summit, where they unveiled their new program called RoadX, and I've got a brochure here on it if anybody would like to look into that further. That is a very innovative project that they're embarking on to partner with vehicle manufacturers, technology companies to promote self-driving cars, car-to-car communication, all with the idea of better efficiency in use of roads, better safety, and ultimately, perhaps, getting to zero deaths, zero injuries, zero congestion. All very theoretical. Wonder if that'll happen in our lifetime. But it's refreshing, though, to see that a state agency is making these efforts, because so often agencies like that stand in the way of progress. But I think they're recognizing that progress is happening, and you either need to be a part of it or you need to you're playing catch up. November 3rd, the manager and I went to a lunch with the Rocky Mountain Fire Chief and 2 board members. The primary discussion there was about their desire to have a service agreement, and we, as a board, have discussed this before. They've made the request to us before. We've replied back to them no. They brought up a couple of new concepts in that lunch meeting, and I went into that meeting thinking, I'm just going to repeat the no from previously, but they brought up some new ideas that I do think have merit, and perhaps an agreement could be advantageous to us. So they're going to present a draft to us, and we'll, of course, have more discussion on that, so more to come on that. The November 5th, I was in Nashville for the National League of Cities Congress of Cities event, and I gave a speech on the Diverging Diamond Interchange to an audience there, and it was just great to have an opportunity to present our story to a national audience, and had several people come up to me afterwards and just ask how we got the whole thing done. And it kind of goes, again, to my first point about our Department of Transportation being willing to take on these new innovative ideas. And so,
Can we get a copy of that presentation? I'd like to be reminded of all of this.
I can give you the written version. The taped
Or
version
you could
should be.
present it to the board.
I could, if you want to spend the next 10 minutes.
I mean, at a future meeting.
At a future meeting, sure.
I'm okay, I lived it, I'm good.
But I would like to be reminded. It
It
is pretty slick, I have to say.
It was very fun researching, it was very fun researching it. I researched the history of it, kind of what, all the different advantages. So it was a very fun
Yeah.
process to be part of that.
It all goes back to a magazine, article in Time magazine.
Really?
Yes.
Did you include that?
Not the time.
Yeah, I don't think you knew that.
Oh, okay.
Alex knows that.
Okay. There was also many other sessions that I attended and got a lot of great ideas, so look forward to sharing some of those as we move forward. Let's see, a couple other ideas or a couple other announcements. I heard on National Public Radio that a Superior resident, Laura Thweet, was finisher in one of the first finishers in the New York City Marathon. It was her first marathon, and I think she was the 7th finisher overall. So a very amazing accomplishment for anyone and a resident here of our town. So congratulations to her. And congratulations to the Youth Leadership Council. Great job on the Treats for Troops. I'm sorry I missed the volunteer appreciation dinner. I always enjoy attending that. And the last item is that I was reading through, you might have seen the Boulder County Business Report does an annual real estate conference, and their conference is coming up next week. And so I'm looking through the lineup on it, and there's a session on development activities. It's called Breaking Ground, which is basically an update on development in our region. And every single municipality other than Superior was represented there. And I called the publisher and said, hey, can we be a part of this? And got a call back today that I'm on the panel. So I'll be there presenting. I invited myself to that party. It's next Thursday, all day. And this particular panel is 1:30 to 1 to 2:30 or something like that. So I think it's very important. It's at University of Colorado at the Glenn Miller Ballroom. I just think it's important for us to, we're one of the smaller municipalities in the county, but it's always important for us to make sure that people are aware of what's going on in our county. So that's one of my.
There's a lot going on. So.
There's a lot going on here, and that's one of my goals as mayor is to make sure I do my part to get our word out there. So, okay, that's it for me. And town manager.
I don't have anything.
Okay, town attorney.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Town clerk.
I don't have any.
All right. Public comment. No public
This is
comment.
where we make up time.
Yes. All right, we're going to get back on schedule here. Chamber of Commerce update. Item number 11. We're pretty good.
We have 2 minutes and then we're off.
And I don't know if I've ever gone over that, so
No,
I
you haven't.
hope I can help.
Yeah.
Heather Craycraft with the Superior Chamber of Commerce. Thank you and happy November. Crazy to believe, but the Chamber is busy working on one of our favorite events of the year that we partner with the town of Superior on is Skate with Santa. And I would have loved to have said we would be skating on new ice this year, but that will be next year when we're big and in the new building, which will be very exciting. But I wanted to give you an invitation as well as to the public. Saturday, December 12th, we will be hosting our family Skate with Santa with all of the fun that ensues, photos with Santa, crafts for the kids, hot cocoa, and lots of goodies from Panera, as well as a little bit of everything for everyone in a goodie bag to take home with themselves. So really it's our way of reminding the public that we are open for business, that we have some fantastic stores and services in our area that are ready for your business. So this year's event will be from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m., which is a little bit later in the schedule, but that is because we have partnered with the hockey team that houses out of our ice rink here. So the Superior Rough Riders will be playing a game shortly after. So they will basically kick us out of the building, get the ice ready, and then a game will ensue after, which should make for a very fun evening. So mark your calendars for December 12th, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Great, thank you very much. All right, next is our consent agenda, and we have 4 items on the consent agenda. We've pulled item E. I would like there's 2 proclamations on the consent agenda, and I'd like to read our proclamation for Veterans Day, and I'm going to summarize the Socket Tuum proclamation, but I just think it's very important for us to recognize the Veterans Day proclamation, especially. Proclamation, Veterans Day. Whereas the willingness of America's veterans to serve our country has earned them our lasting gratitude, and whereas on this, our nation's 61st annual Veterans Day observance, we celebrate and honor the patriots who have fought to protect the democratic ideals that are the foundation of our country, and whereas the armistice ending World War I was signed on November 11th, 1918, more than 4.7 million Americans put down their arms and turned to work strengthening our nation. The end of that first global conflict was initially commemorated as Armistice Day. In 1954, the Congress renamed the day as Veterans Day to recognize all of those who served in our armed forces. And whereas throughout our history, citizens from every corner of America have assumed the duty of military life, and whereas Such services required sacrifice, hardship, endurance, dedication, bravery, courage, and the highest level of patriotism. And whereas those who have served our country deserve special attention, and whereas in respect for and recognition of the contribution our servicemen and women have made, the Congress has provided that November 11th of each year shall be set aside as a legal public holiday to honor veterans. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Clint Folsom, Mayor of the Town of Superior, Colorado, and the Board of Trustees hereby dedicate and proclaim Wednesday, November 11th, 2015 as Veterans Day in the Town of Superior, and urge all citizens of Superior to recognize the valor and sacrifice of our veterans and to remember that freedom is not free, and these men and women who paid for the freedom all of us enjoy today. Proclaim this 26th day of October 2015. And then the second proclamation on our agenda is a proclamation for Socket Tuum. The Socket Tuum campaign was started in 2011 by a woman in Denver and is now spread to several states, and I was proud to be a participant in this program last year and hope that our Youth Advisory Council can be a part of collecting socks as well as they collected candy, and I think it's a fun event. We're going to also tie it into our stocking run, and we collected a lot of socks there. So socks are the #1 homeless clothing need of the homeless, and they wear out faster than any other article of clothing and are rarely donated. So that's kind of the reason for the Socket to 'Em campaign. And so we will have a drop-off here in town and starting soon, and that will be through the end of the year. So please spread the word about Socket to 'Em.
Is that new socks only?
New socks only, yes.
And they keep you warm.
That's right. All right. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through D. Motion by Trustee Pennington, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor?
I abstain from the approving the minutes from the last board meeting.
Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. That passes unanimously. Item 12E, Trustee Sorelli.
I just had a couple of questions relating, that came to mind in reading the cover memo, and that this agreement is expiring at the end of this year, and then it says that Veris, formerly Parker, has been under contract for approximately 4 years, and if we sign this agreement for 2016, it'll be with an opportunity to renew on a yearly basis for the following 4 years. So I'm trying to figure out where this thing was ever competed.
So there's a certain this is a very specific service that's provided, and there's one of the few companies out there, if memory serves.
We
Parker
did.
Ag was the last time it was competed out for bid. And that
Actually, we
they were
did,
selected.
we went out to bids earlier at the end of last year. We actually signed the contract, I think, in April of this year. So we went out and looked at other vendors, got prices from other vendors. There's only a couple around at this point. So we did look at 2 vendors last year and signed the contract earlier, and this is for this coming 2016.
I guess it should be clear to us as a process that, because we came up with a procurement policy that we would, I think 4 years would be the max, and so if we're going beyond that, we should know why. And maybe if it just wasn't clear to me.
Wasn't clear in that, I'm sorry, yeah.
That's the only reason I pulled this was, I didn't understand why we're still going. We're gonna go potentially for 8 years or 10 years or whatever it adds up to with the same contractor, and usually that's justified somewhere or explained somehow.
Okay.
And so that's all I'm asking. And
But
so-
went out and looked at other vendors last year and got prices from those vendors and did an evaluation. So that should have been clear in the memo.
So will that happen again the next 4 years or no? Or-
No, because we just did it in,
So this is a continuation of the one recently awarded.
But shouldn't the text here say,
Yeah, it should
is
have
2015 the first year of that, or should
Yes.
it say 3 more years in the text here? If we go out every 4 years and one's
Every 4
completed.
yeah, we did it in 15, we'll do 16, 17, and 18, and then we'll rebid it.
Right.
Yeah, it
So
should be-
let's,
It should be,
so
3 more
there
years.
is a process issue with that, because when we change a cover memo, we need to make sure the change is reflected in the historical record of the cover memos. Otherwise, I call up this and it says 4 years, when I call it up in 6 months to check out wastewater treatment.
The
Contracts.
contract itself says 4 years as well, so if it's not 4 years, that needs to be changed.
Okay?
Well,
Okay.
I asked the
so-
question, if this is the first renewal, wouldn't that be then that we have 3 more renewals left?
Correct.
I was confused, I couldn't figure out from reading it. So are we extending another 4 years beyond, we never reduce the renewal period?
If we wanted the total to be 4 years, then it should be the first year plus 3 optional renewals. I will change that in the agreement.
Yeah, that would help. Thank you.
Okay, so that will be changed, so,
Well, that's up to the board. I
Okay.
shouldn't have jumped to that
No, no, it
conclusion. If
should
the
be
board would
changed.
like
Yeah.
that, I will change that in the agreement.
No, no,
So-
it should be changed.
Well, we need to know if I didn't see that the renewals, if this is the first renewal, because I know we looked at this in April, like you said, if this is considered the first renewal, then there's only 3 left.
The first year
Or-
is considered the initial term, and then there should be 3 renewal options for a total of 4 years, if that's what the board is
but
wanting.
that was awarded already with 4 year,
So it was a 5-year
this
contract.
is a contract that's in existence with 1 year plus 4 renewal years
Right.
already?
This is a brand-new contract that you're
Oh,
looking at
this
right
is
now.
Oh, okay.
This is a brand-new contract.
Okay.
What?
See, I'm confused.
So am I. Because Alex is looking at me like, like this is, yes.
This is an existing company that we've had.
Yeah, we've had them on
Right.
board
Right, I understand, but this that you would be approving tonight is a brand-new contract.
for
So the simple correction is just like she stated.
3 years.
You approve this contract with 3-year
3
optional
renewals,
renewals.
3
3
renewal.
1-year optional
3
renewals.
potential options.
So it has nothing to do with what we did in April. We're starting over.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's it.
Because I thought it was a
Yeah, that
continuation of the other
wasn't
one. Okay, that's good.
Joe, thanks for bringing that up.
It's still not clear to me. So is that now, at the end of this new contract, will we have had 9 years with Veris/Parker? Or will we have had 8? Because I thought you said that 2015 was year 5 in total. 4 plus 1.
And then 3 more.
So are we doing 3 more, or are we writing a new
There's an
contract that
option-
is 4 more?
With Kindred's change, there'll be an option for 3 additional 1-year renewals. And
So
then
that
it'll
would
be
be
bid
total
out
8.
again, and then depending on who comes in at the lowest price or best price plus best services.
So that's a
will
total
be
of 9.
selected.
8.
No, because he said the 2016 contract, which is what we're approving, will have wording for 3 more years. So year 2015 was already year 5. The 4 previous, plus this one.
Plus 3 more.
2016 is the new contract we're writing with the language plus 3 in it. So that's 9. That's where I'm coming from. 2015 was the plus 1. We had 4 on this side, and we're going to have 4 on this side.
Right.
So that's a total of 9. Because 2015 counted as that,
We didn't rebid it.
Yeah.
We didn't rebid it for 16, we rebid it for 15. So 15 was the initial, and there.
so what are you
And
asking?
then
This
3 more
says,
years.
Okay,
No,
now,
2, I
now
think
you just
it-
said something different.
I think it's, the way it's written there, the contract is probably 2 more.
2 more
2 more
years. Yes.
And
Okay.
if you can amend that contract, that'll be fine, then there'll only be 4 years of Veris
So it was awarded with
Previous plus this year.
in
more
15.
years than.
Next one would be the one.
Whatever is what we expect, or everybody expected, but is 2015, I read it as 2015 was the first year, and we have 4 renewals. Wait, it's confusing. We just need, is 2015 the first year, or is 2016 the first year?
2015.
But it-
Okay.
2015 is
just-
the first
So
year.
we don't have to deal with this today. We can have it come at the next board meeting, all approved, and so we all understand it.
Well, here's, we can only have the contract apply to services from today's date forward after the board approves it. So that's why I'm a little confused when you say it's for 2015. Any services provided up to today's date, we're under a different contract. This is a whole new contract. That's why I'm a little confused.
Why are we doing a new contract when we just approved this in April? We just went through the
December
bid
4th.
He
process.
said it expires on 31.
Well, it's over 25,000, so it comes to the board.
And it's over 30, it expires on 31 December, is that?
Just around the corner.
Kendra, are we approving 3 more years?
We don't know.
2016, 17,
Exactly.
I'm a little lost. So if this contract, the current contract expires on
It
December
needs to come
31st,
back.
2015, we can set this contract up to start on January 1st, 2016. The first year will be the initial year, then after that will be renewals. So it sounds like we want 2016 plus 2 renewals.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we go back to the drawing board on this and bring it back to the next board meeting? So let's do a little research on this so that we're not.
Are you okay time-wise with that? November 23rd?
That's a good solution.
This is one of the examples where we need to get it in time so that we can make sure that it's complete and we all understand it the same way. Because I read it the same way. I wrote down, how many renewals are we? Doesn't it ever go down? You know, are we always constantly saying we have 4 renewals, 4 years of renewals?
If Kendra is confused, we're not moving forward.
Yeah.
That's the bottom
It needs to
line.
come back.
Let's get the.
If we're not
Okay.
gonna, if we're not gonna interfere with services continuity, I'd recommend that.
I just want to
Just
make
get
sure our
approved.
solid waste is not going to pile up.
Or
It does pile up in the truck though, remember? on
Until
our
we're
tour?
ready to-
That's what we're
After
talking
it's
about.
purified.
We need it hauled away. That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
might have to
All right.
work on our
If we're
engineering.
good, we'll
Sorry.
revisit this later.
And I'm not gonna be here on the 23rd, but.
That's a good discussion.
I'll miss.
Okay, that's been, 12E's been postponed, so we'll move on now to item number 13, public hearings and approvals of resolutions for the 2015 budget amendments. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Proof of publication.
I do have 4 proof of publications.
Okay, 4 proof of publications have been verified.
Typically, at the end of every year, we have budget amendments. Due to a variety of factors, either additional revenues come in that was above what we had budgeted, or we had additional expenses. You know, in 2013, we had the flood. So every year, we have budget amendments in one or more different areas. Tonight, we have 4 budget amendments for the board to consider. Most of these are related to the refinancing of our debt, which is significantly going to save the town money in interest rates and other areas. With that, I'm going to have Paul come up, and he can go through each of the 4 different budget amendments and answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Mr. Magley, Paul Nellis, town staff. As the manager identified, these are truly administrative in nature. We are just ensuring that the appropriations or the budget that we have is higher, at least as high as our expenditures. So with that in mind, we'll go through briefly the 4 areas that we require budget amendments. First, we'll start with the town. Essentially, 2 of the larger expense line items in the town's budget are representative of transfers out of the general fund into our capital fund, as well as a transfer to support our utility operation. So the primary reason, so we're proposing a $450,000 budget amendment for the town, indicative of higher transfers to our capital program as well as our utility program. Both those particular funds are requiring of those monies for 2 purposes in general. In 2015, back in April, I believe, the board elected to proceed with a little bit higher than budgeted capital program for street rehabilitation. So some additional funds we had as a result of 2014 reserves combined with these additional revenues are paying for those particular improvements. The second component is the transfer to our utility operations. To make our utility operations whole, they are not self-sufficient at this point in time. In 2015, we experienced a couple of unique factors. We had revenues lower than anticipated from water sales. Combination, we had line maintenance expenses higher than anticipated. So the transfer to the utility operation is essentially to assist with that particular phenomenon. Second budget amendment within the town is, well, I already went through it, excuse me, represents our capital program for street rehabilitation. We spent about $300,000 more than we had initially budgeted. Again, the primary funding source were additional revenues at the end of 2014. And in addition to that, we had maintenance repair work. This is crack sealing, pothole repair. If the board would remember, earlier this year we and other municipalities were experiencing a tremendous freeze-thaw cycle, and it had very negative ramifications on our roadway. So Mr. Ornello and his staff were very proactive in requiring to spend quite a bit more money, about $100,000 more in maintenance repair work than we initially had planned. The final budget amendment within the town's budget is, as the manager alluded to, some expenses associated with the debt refinancing. In this particular case, it was the open space debt, and we just need the budget for what are known as issuance costs. These are lawyer bills, financial advisor bills. The second area of the budget amendment, and some of these will be duplicative in nature, is our utility operation. The primary budget amendment that is affecting our water, sewer, and storm operations is reflecting that we are paying off our old debt, so we have to represent that as an expense, and it's a rather large expense, over $23 million to pay off the old debt and the debt issuance costs associated with that. Obviously, the payment source for that is predominantly the new debt or the new bonds, notes, excuse me, that we took out. The next adjustment in our utility operation is a sewer capital budget amendment. And you'll hear the term with this particular item and a couple more, something that we refer to as carryover. It's typically we budget to finish a project in year one, and for whatever reason, we don't complete it until year two. So that's what happened here in Storm Capital with our secondary clarifier upgrade. We had anticipated and budgeted to complete this project in 2014, and it's not completed until 2015. So we're just carrying forward or reappropriating the funds for that particular project. Storm Capital is the final budget amendment within our utility operation. Again, we have another, what is known as a carryover project. These were some McCaslin Boulevard drainage improvements that we completed in 2015, but originally had budgeted in 2014. The larger component of this budget amendment represents a $500,000 hazardous mitigation grant program funding that we received from the federal government. This is for additional work that we are currently doing on Coal Creek basin improvements. Two final budget amendments. One is in our interchange district. The first line item there is a maintenance or capital budget amendment of $300,000, again for another carryover project. We had budgeted in 2014, and we're planning to complete the Coal Creek Drive improvements from 5th to 76th. Those were not completed until 2015, and thus we're rebudgeting those funds. The second line is debt, again with the same analogy we used before. We have refunded interchange debt, paid off the old debt, and are funding that with our new notes. Final budget amendment is precautionary in nature, and I certainly hope it happens. This is in relation to our Urban Renewal Authority. We don't know what the final figures will be as it relates to sales within the Urban Renewal Authority, and again, these are sales tax generated from the Superior Marketplace. So these are just precautionary in nature. If in fact we receive more revenues than what we're anticipating, that would be good. We're just budgeting in case that scenario happens there. So there's a quick synopsis. Staff can hopefully answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions? Okay.
Like to make a motion?
Let's,
Or not yet?
hold on. We got to do public comment.
That's right.
Any public comment? Seeing none. Any final discussion? Okay.
No, can you close the public hearing?
Public hearing closed. Any final
Would
discussion?
like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution R-55 55, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a supplemental budget and appropriations for fiscal year 2015.
Motion by trustee Gregoris, second by trustee Pennington. And roll call vote.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Sorelli?
Yes.
Gazelle?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes. Thank you. All right, item number 14, adoption of a resolution approving a second amendment to subdivision improvement agreement, SIA, for Superior Town Center Final Development Plan 1, Phase 1.
Don't we have to make motions
No,
for
we
the
have
other?
3 more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you moved on to 14.
Okay, I thought we were just wrapping them all
Yeah,
up
no,
in
no, no, we have
one
3
together.
more
We have
motions.
Okay.
3 more, yay.
Resolutions.
All right, sorry about that.
We'll go to the next one.
You're moving fast.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Superior Metropolitan District Number 1, Resolution SMD 1-56.
No.
No.
10.
10.
It's
Oh,
a
you
different-
messed me up.
All right, 10.
She messed you up.
Did it
Series
on
2015, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 approving a supplemental budget and appropriations for fiscal year 2015.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Director Gregoris and a second by Director Pennington.
Okay.
Roll call.
Williams?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes?
Olson?
Yes,
Dozell?
Yes.
Sorelli?
Yes.
thank you. Next one.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District Resolution SMID number 4, Series 2015. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District approving a supplemental budget and appropriations for fiscal year 2015.
Okay, motion by Director Gregoris, second by Director Williams. Roll call vote.
Let's start with Sorelli?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes?
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Okay. Yes.
So the yes?
Yes. Okay.
Borderline, okay. And finally, I'd like to make a motion to approve Superior Urban Renewal Authority Resolution Sura-3, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Superior Urban Renewal Authority approving a supplemental budget and appropriations for fiscal year 2015.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Gregoris and second by Commissioner Williams.
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yeah.
Sorelli?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Okay.
I've never had more titles in my life in 5 minutes. Director,
That is great.
Is that it?
Yep.
Is that it with 13? Okay, now we'll move on to 14.
All right.
Adoption of a resolution approving a second amendment to subdivision improvement agreement, SIA, for Superior Town Center Final Development Plan 1, Phase 1.
The Town Center developer, RC Superior, is requesting extension to complete the public improvements associated with Phase 1 Final Development Plan 1. For the board's consideration, attached is a second amendment to the SIA with RC Superior for Phase 1 public improvements for the Superior Town Center. The original SIA was approved by the board on November 25th, 2013. A first amendment was approved on September 22nd, 2014, extending the deadline for improvements to December 31st, 2015, which is the end of this year. The second amendment revises Section 6 of the SIA to allow more time for the developer to complete the Phase 1 public improvements, extends the deadline for completion to December 31st, 2016. All other sections of the SIA remain the same. The Phase 1, just as a review, STC public improvements include wet and dry utility systems, detention pond, landscaping, lighting, temporary access road, parking, and streetscape enhancements within Main Street and Superior Drive rights-of-way. Randy Goodson with RC Superior is here to answer any questions or any discussion the board would like to have with regard to this amendment.
Okay. Who'd like to start? Trustee Dozen.
Okay, so there isn't a presentation. I thought Randy was going to do something, but that's good. Okay, so we're doing an extension of the Phase 1 date, which was already extended once, from last year to this year, and now you're asking for an extension for another year. And what is the reason for that extension?
Mostly the delay in the starting of construction for the Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports facility, and that related to our final design planning, because we did not want to advance our final design planning until we were certain that they were going to be built, and it wasn't certain that they would actually pull all their financing together. It's a very expensive facility, and we all know that history.
Mm-hmm.
And so the project really would take on two different natures. If Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports was an absolute certainty, as it is clearly now, then we've come forward with the presentation I provided previously. We've done a lot of work since then because we want to make the project be oriented and very inclusive with Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports. By the way, Randy Goodson, RC Superior, pardon me. And so it's really
The audience was wondering who you were.
It just really relates to that timing, because it's such a major facility and the very first facility that if we didn't have that facility, we were going to still make the project successful. It just would have been oriented, I think, more in line with how we originally presented Superior Town Center.
Okay, and I think when the FDP Phase 1 was submitted, it wasn't submitted with the caveat or the condition that Boulder Valley Ice needed to be started first before this FDP. So we weren't aware of that, I guess, as residents or as trustees, that there was a condition that you had that obviously we didn't recognize. So now we're sitting here going, we thought Main Street was going to be developed and done by now, by December 31st, and able to be sent over and accepted by the town as the public improvements that were created by your FDP Phase 1. So I'm kind of at a loss as to now we're being asked to extend it for another year, but I don't know what's in it for the town necessarily. I understand that you're delayed, and but we're kind of sitting here saying, okay, what is in it for the town? How do we come together and get some things done that we need to have done for the town too, and let's make sure that we're on the same page as we move forward. So how do we know that we actually get this all completed, this FDP Phase 1 completed by sometime third quarter or sooner? Because we have to have some time to actually review it and accept it by the town. So it needs to be done before December 31st of 2016, if that's the date that we decide. So what are your plans to ensure that this time we actually do get a Main Street done and we don't have to extend it again?
Well, there's a number of different questions there. I think the first one, just to clarify, the completion does not relate to the same date of acceptance. Completion is just completion, and then acceptance is 2 years after.
Well, no, that's the warranty
completion.
period. With the acceptance is reviewing it engineering-wise and saying it's good, and then you warranty it for 2 years. That has to happen within this time frame, as I read the development agreement and the SIA. But so what are your plans, or how can you give us comfort and
So
assurance?
typically, well, anyway, not to argue
Yeah.
that, it is what it is.
Right.
But can we just have clarity from the attorney on that? So would he have to December 31st, or would he have to September 30th? Yeah, or whatever time it takes to approve it by the town. Can you respond to what, Rita?
It would be
December 31st.
Yes.
Yeah, but it has to be presented and reviewed,
Yes.
and before that date, you can't throw it on the lap of the town on December 31st of next year and say, okay, here it is. I mean, there has to be a little bit of timing in advance of that in order for us to, as a town, to actually accept it. But that's part of, again, how do we actually have comfort that we'll be sitting here, that we won't be sitting here next year at this time asking for another extension? How can we get some documentation or planning or project involvement in some way? What are your plans to make sure that it's done this
Well,
time, so we don't have to ask for another extension?
So
You don't have to ask for extension.
There's a couple of ways of doing this. You can have subdivision improvement agreements where you have 3 years or 4 years to complete the improvements, or you can have shorter periods of time where this is a large project. We're here I come to you every month at least. I answer all your questions every time I come here. And we're doing, our effort is to do the best job we can to create the best place and not just build streets with no buildings for the town. I don't think that's in the town's interest to just have streets and no buildings.
But you have to have streets to have buildings, don't you? To get builders, don't you have to have streets? You know, have a plan for the streets, and so that builders.
We have a plan for the streets, and we have an FDP.
But it's been extended twice now, so.
So, just not to argue this issue, our
Mm-hmm.
goal is to make a great community with buildings and streets and parks and trails and sidewalks and things. And so our plan is to do all of that together, and we're working on that. We're willing to have 1-year terms where we come to you and we keep showing you the progress. I think you all there, it's very clear that there's been a lot of progress. And if you get to a point where there's not progress to your satisfaction, the reason there's an FDP with the improvement bonds is you can go in there and complete the streets yourself if you want, with the bonds that we've put up. And that's certainly your prerogative now. You could go complete all the streets if you want to do that.
And the bonds will be extended with this extension.
That's what it
They'll
says.
still, the 10 point,
Yeah, that's
some
what it
3
requires.
million, yeah.
That's
And
what's
then is
required.
that Exhibit B in there says both for north and south, is that a misstatement? Isn't it just for FDP Phase 1 for the north side and not for the south side? On the Exhibit B
So
of the.
there's two issues, just to clarify.
Mhm.
The bond is based upon the formula contractually with the town.
Mhm.
And so the dollar amount of the bond relates to the work that has not yet been done.
But
And-
for Phase 1.
Well, we're only talking about FDP 1, Phase 1.
Right,
So-
but on the bottom of Exhibit B that shows the public improvement cost, it adds up to the 10.3 million. It says for both north and south improvements. So I was just wondering if that's a misstatement, because we're only talking about the $10.3 million bond for the north FDP Phase 1.
So we're not talking about a bond at all, I don't think. I think we're talking about
A guarantee.
extending the subdivision improvement agreement.
Which would also extend the guarantee.
It would extend the guarantee. The
Mhm.
guarantee, the dollar amount of the guarantee is related to those improvements that have not been completed, plus there's an amount for the warranty period.
What's the date for the completion date for Phase 2, FDP Phase 2?
December 31st, 2016.
Okay, so that one's already was extended, or not extended, but a further date out
That's
than
correct.
this one. This one was only a year. Okay, so my final comment is that I'm happy to hear you say you want to complete the parks as well as the public improvements all at the same time. And that would be.
Pardon me, I didn't say that.
You just said that.
I want to complete the entire project.
Yeah, you just said that, though, in your comment.
So just to clarify, I don't want to argue with you over
I'm not
and my
arguing,
words
I'm
and
just
things
trying
like
to
that.
understand.
Our goal, and I think the town's goal, is to build a complete project,
Mhm.
the complete project. So when the entire project is complete, you have not just streets, not just sidewalks, but you have buildings as well. And you have parks and trails and sidewalks, the whole project.
Okay, well, you had said that we'd do it all together, and I think that's a smart plan, that we do it all together.
Not to
within-
argue. I don't want to argue
Well,
with what
why
I
are
said.
you then
I just tried to
arguing
clarify.
with me?
I want to clarify what your interpretation of what I said is.
Okay, that's fine. My interpretation is that there are certain parts of this development that are very important to and necessary as far as the town is concerned. And those are the parks, park areas, and the green spaces. And also, and so as we look to possibly extend this FDP Phase 1, for some time frame into 2016. The goal would be to actually do complete those green spaces, as many of them as possible, within that same time frame. So that would be the Parks 1 and 2. We work together to get that quite a ways down the road, to get Parks 1 and 2 done, or as far down the road as we can. We can define what done means, get her done means. And it also is to make sure we understand what the cemetery restoration is going to be looking like, and how that area is going to be restored back, take the part that's been cut off and dug out, how that's going to be put back, and also the buffer too, to actually get a concept plan of how that's going to be restored, the dirt restored, and also the landscaping for the entire buffer all the way. That would be my goal as a representative of the town of Superior and the residents here, that we want to see the progress and the plan for completion of Parks 1 and 2, Coal Creek Corridor, to restore the cemetery again, and to restore and complete the landscaping of the buffer as part of this agreement to extend the date for FDP Phase 1.
Is that part of the buffer discussion? Is that part of this FDP 1, Phase 1? I thought those
It
were
could
two
be as
totally
part of
separate
a
things.
condition. It can be a condition.
Okay.
I would also, so something I was thinking as you were having the discussion, as far as, reasons for them to have, for us to feel like they'll have the public improvements done by the end of this time next year, or close to it. I would imagine they have obligations not only to the town, but to other parties, whether it's home builders or a hotel group or the ice center, that they have to meet as part of their contract
Instead
with them.
of talking to me, why don't you ask that
Well,
of the applicant?
I'm just.
And then let them say that, perhaps, maybe, to how they can.
That's one of the things I would say provides the town some additional assurances that these public improvements will be done, because they have to meet certain obligations with these other parties.
But we've never
to
seen any of
deliver.
those
Yeah,
obligations.
that's a
We
huge
have
presumption that there are the other contracts
Well, the
in
ice center
place.
is one for sure.
What is the obligation to the ice center to get Main Street open to provide access? So I know they want to be operational as soon as possible, but does that mean they will be using that temporary roadway to get in there? And I'm less concerned about the parking once they're in there, a temporary parking lot versus the permanent parking lot, but the concern is this use of that temporary road, which is only accessible from northbound traffic. So A, is that the intended access until Main Street's done? And then B, if so, is there any provision for cutting through the median to allow southbound traffic to access? Because the only other option is to go up to Discovery and do a U-turn, which is not a great scenario.
So the things that we're working on now, we do have contracts with, for 5 different housing types. And we have a contract with Superior Medical Office. They've submitted applications with the town to amend their FDP. We have an obligation to proceed on a best efforts basis to complete FDP 1 for Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports. We've issued a bond. We have committed in that bond to proceed to complete FDP 1. The money is sitting in a bank account to complete FDP 1 plus most of FDP 2. As for access, we have a PD amendment that's coming before the board to relocate, to do a lot of the things that we've talked about, maybe not just to sidetrack and get into that at this moment, but there's a PD amendment that's coming forward. When that PD amendment is completed, then we will let the contracts for Main Street. And so we have to build Main Street so that it is, so that it matches up with the town plaza, and it matches up with the plan that we have for the development parcels and the sidewalks and things like that. And so that's the timing. And we went ahead and paved. We didn't have to, but we wanted to pave the temporary access road, just so that we have it there, because our goal is to have Main Street open by July. And I'd love to have Main Street and the plaza open for July 4th. I'm not sure if we're going to make that. So we have all these sales contracts, and the way we bring the project together is by making progress and by meeting timeframes. We have.
Do you see any possibility of coming in a year from now, this very time, and extending it another year?
Any possibility?
Yeah.
I think it's a very, very low possibility.
Okay.
And things happen that we don't anticipate. I think it's a very, very low probability.
Give us some ideas of what might happen to cause you to come in again next year.
Well, you could not approve PDA 2 or the PDA amendment. We'd have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we're going to do. We could have disputes with the town that temper our interest in continuing to invest in the project. You know, that's something that, and it couldn't just be with us. There could be the types of disputes that scare builders away. You know, we're in a situation where we're trying to have people invest money to develop all types of buildings with the town, and they want to invest in a town that, any place builders invest, they want to be confident that that's going to be a good investment. And so
can I
think
stop you right there?
These are low probability issues.
Do you mind if I just stop you right there? I kind of want to understand, is there an issue that you're trying to insinuate, or
No, the concept is.
I thought things were fine. It doesn't sound like they're fine. Could you elaborate?
Like I said, it's a very low probability. The question was what, so I said it's a very low probability. The first thought that came to mind that was a bad response, I think, is, well, people fly airplanes into buildings, and the business world shuts down for a year, at least. There's a very low probability, but there's always a probability that construction stops. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Financial industry could change. You're asking me to guess. I was asked to guess at what
you can't predict the future.
Some of those low probability
that's a
things
loaded
could
question. It really is, because anything he says that if he's being honest, he can't guarantee that he's not going to come back again. So you're asking for a response. So now all of a sudden that response is held out there.
But I think it is fair. Rita's initial question was, how do we know that we're going to have no progress till 2017 and then 2018 and 2019? That's the concern. Having already approved an extension with another extension in front of me, I want to have confidence that everything's going okay, that you are still enthusiastic about the project, that you in fact, I'd like you actually to repeat that statement. Did I hear you correctly that you said you have contracts in place with 5 different housing types? Or
Yeah, yes. Plus
Okay.
the Superior Medical Office building that we expect to break ground in the first quarter.
Okay, and those are executed contracts. They're not just contract negotiations.
We have executed contracts, and we have many more contracts to execute.
Right, but you have 5
5 executed contracts with
different housing types.
yes. that's
Okay.
right.
And can you give us a clue when those would break ground? You said Main Street open by July 2016?
I see them all breaking ground in the second quarter of next year.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And which comes first, the roads or the building? It's chicken and egg here.
They really come together. What you need is you need the utilities in, and you don't necessarily want to have all the roads paved, because you have to then, so we have our trunk utilities that are in the main streets, then we have laterals that will go into each individual lot and into the interior streets within blocks. And we don't want to tear up the streets after we've built them and reconnect the laterals. So what we're doing now is we're putting in the main trunk infrastructure, and we're working with all the builders and their architects to figure out where their utility connections all need to be. And then we want to make those utility connections before we pave the streets. so we paved them just once. And then Main Street is a particularly important street because it's concrete and pavers, and so we don't want to cut Main Street up at all. And so there's a lot of planning that comes together, and we don't want to get the cart before the horse. We could have a paved street and then go cut it up 6 months later, and you just never quite put them back together as well. And so we're avoiding that. And
Hold on,
we have.
Trustee Gregoris is next.
Yeah, I have several questions.
Yeah.
So, the first one, so the Superior Medical building, they must have had at least 50% tenants. That was the qualifier, right?
Yes.
Do you know where they're at, kind of, in terms of?
Well, I know they were at 50%, and they were at 50% for a period of time, and right now I think they're at 50%. The latest information was a week and a half ago that one tenant that made them at 50% or took them over 50% was waffling on their lease. Last week they said they thought they had it resolved or was in the process of being resolved. My understanding is they have another tenant that would take that space.
Okay.
That takes time, but they're comfortable enough that they're advancing their plans. They do have that 50% requirement. My understanding is their loan has been approved based on that pre-leasing, but there's stages of contracts. There's, initial contracts, and then the builder or the contractor, they put together their plans, and then once the plans are done, they come back and you hit another milestone where you then need to put together a construction contract. So, for example, with Superior Medical Office Building, with any of the projects, we don't allow speculation in the Superior Town Center. And so in a lot of developments, master developers will just sell off land and get the money, and then whenever it's built, and they don't really know what's being built. But we're creating a compact urban environment that all has to fit together. So we're not trying to sell land early. We're trying to sell land to the right people and know exactly what product they're going to build and see how it all comes together. And we don't close escrow until they have their loan approved and they're starting construction. So we say they have to close their construction loan into escrow. And so that's the issue with Superior Medical Office Building. We could have closed on that site and sold it, but then we lose a lot of control over things that we want to control.
Okay. Last time you were here, we were talking about BVI, and you said you were waiting for Excel and I think the water to come in. Are they doing it? Is Excel? Where are you with those?
Excel could use a little kick in the butt. They have not met their schedule.
No.
To date. Mm-hmm. They. I know we're on video, and I don't want them to be pissed and then not show up at all.
There's a meeting Wednesday morning with Excel, and I'm not sure if my staff's there or not, but the developer staff's going to be there, and the regional area manager for Excel emailed me and let me know he's going to be at this meeting.
I would highly recommend there's somebody from the town there. Highly recommend it, because that's holding us up. I mean.
That's right.
Right. So
when were they supposed to have been done with their part?
They were supposed to be 100% done last Friday.
And how far are they done?
Maybe 45% done.
Okay, well, so if there's a way to get staff, somebody who's got a voice representing the town to say, hey, you promised us something, and it's time to get it done and finish it before Christmas.
Comcast was the other entity there, too. Are they done? Or
Comcast is not the critical path element.
Who is the other one? There was Excel and?
Well, we have a number of contractors. We have a contractor. We have a contract with a contractor to build the retaining walls in the detention pond, and we're fighting to get them out to the site. We've had that contract for months,
okay.
And they're I think 4 weeks away from where they have a window when they have to start construction. These contracts have a window.
So when do you see BVI actually opening up for business?
I think
it's not really his. He's not the applicant.
No, I know. I just want to see his best guesstimate, though.
So what BVI really needs is power to cool
Right.
the ice. And the.
No, that's what they need.
Yeah, and
Yes,
so
I
for their
know.
first sheet of ice, my sense is they could still probably make the end of January. If, it depends on when, and it's, so Excel has a number of utility contractors that they work with. And we have one utility contractor, so it's not as simple as just going to Excel, because then they have these contracts, and all these contracts have these delivery and performance windows, periods of time when things have to be done. And so to, like if I was up here representing Excel, I would say that we're well within the performance window.
How do you stay patient with all these delays?
You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and getting mad at the people just make sure that they're not going to show up at all. People will walk away. It's not really staying patient. It's just being practical and being persistent, being nice and professional, having a contract, and trying to massage every issue. There's every different contractor that we have to coordinate. We've spent a lot of money already because Excel gave us a schedule, for example, of when they were going to need the trenches. So we had trenches open waiting for them, and then we had to go fill them, and we're going to have to go dig them out again. And so, I mean, I think it's a bad answer just to say it's the process, because it seems like I'm happy with it. We push. We have a project manager who calls Excel first thing every morning. Why aren't you here? They're Excel's contractor. When are you going to be here? And it is a balancing act, because if you really piss them off, they'll just go. They all have work. They all have plenty of work, and they'll just go somewhere else. The real important thing for us is we look at the big picture, and and our builders, the people in our industry are aware of these performance windows, and they know that we're pulling all the plans together so that we can implement in a comprehensive way and have and build blocks. We are, I think you guys know, we're building out blocks at a time, so we don't have, because in an urban setting we have multiple product types in each block.
Right.
It will they'll all feel like really natural urban city blocks, and so.
So I got one last question. So, best case scenario, end of January, let's say Valentine's Day, we have the grand opening. Main Street is not going to be ready until late July or beyond. So how do people get from February to July for the next those 4 or 5 months? Are they going to use this dirt road here to get there?
Well, you probably haven't been there in the last since.
I have not, since we went last time. Yes.
So it's paved. It's paved now.
Okay.
But to those points, the grand opening, my understanding is somewhere in late March of the whole facility.
Okay.
To the mayor's point about the cut in the median, we have talked to town staff about that as a temporary option, particularly because we'll be constructing the roundabout, and that will further make it difficult for people to go past and up to Discovery and then back down. And so that's something that we've talked to your staff about.
Is the town okay with that, to be able to make a left-hand turn?
We're looking at a couple of options. I mean, we have some concerns about how close it is to the bridge, how the distance away from the bridge it is.
Mm-hmm.
Cutting the median twice, because they're going to cut it for the roundabout and then having another cut. So we're looking at a couple of options, trying to come up with the best option.
Okay.
We are also at the same time working on the Discovery Parkway connection, and then we'll relocate our construction access to Discovery Parkway, so that we'll only be having the people going to Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports coming through the paved access. Right. And so that'll reduce, again, it'll disperse the traffic between the two locations. And
you don't want to be competing with construction trucks if you're trying to get your kids to the hockey rink.
That's right.
Ice rink. So.
That's right.
So why make this agreement only a year? I mean, you might want to cushion it more, you know? I mean, why put yourself in that position?
Well, really, this came up the very first time we had the agreement, and the town wants to know what the progress is, and I really do think we're all in this together. There's no interest in the town taking over our bonds and just going and completing, you know, the roads, and then you finish them, and we'd have to go cut them up, and you'd own the roads that are all cut up sooner. So I think we're doing it the right way. The town wanted, this is the shortest agreement I've ever had, a performance agreement, but we've had a great relationship with the town, and we've come in constantly and have a good dialogue, and we explain what we're doing. I think you see progress. As long as you keep seeing progress, we'll keep, you know, plugging away at it. You'll have more and more builders before you. The first 3-4 months of next year are going to be very busy. Actually, probably from December, I think you'll have more applications in, and probably 2, maybe 3 more builder applications in the next 45 days. And then the other 2 probably in January. So there's a lot that's going to be coming forward. But it's sort of been the nature of our dialogue with the town and what we're doing. You care a lot. You all care a lot. And it's,
Well,
you don't have to hold our feet to the fire because we don't make any money until.
Yeah, I get the
you know,
updates, the monthly updates. They're great. I understand that. But I mean, I don't understand why you only want to put a year on this. I mean,
Well, I that's not really the question here, because
Well,
it
that's
isn't,
your
it isn't.
question. That's your question.
I know, but I'm saying in the general, it's not a general question, because what we're talking about
It
here
is,
is
actually.
completing just Main Street, not the whole downtown.
but if you're
of-
not
of this-
sure and you need more time, in my mind, I would feel more comfortable if you came forward and said, you know, we need 18 months, you know, and I would feel more comfortable with that, because you'd feel more comfortable. But I sense some, you know,
The board
hesitancy.
put the time frame on it.
Yeah.
No, the board
That-
didn't put the time frame on
The
it.
1 year?
No.
In the very beginning, the board did put the time frame
Did
on
the
it.
board
and-
say that, or was it submitted by the?
It was originally submitted with a 2015 timeframe, and the board requested it changed to
2014.
Yeah, it changed it to 2014. And I think the board wanted the developer to come back and request an extension and explain why they needed it if we got into that situation. I think that was the logic.
That's exactly right.
And it was extended another year. I'm not saying
No,
not
no,
to
the-
extend
The
it.
very
I'm just-
first draft was a 2-year,
Right.
had a 2-year
Right.
provision, and then it was
That's-
changed to
that's
1 year.
correct.
I'm not suggesting not to extend it. I'm just saying, how do we continue to work together like we have been to get some things done in 2016? You know, that's what you want to do, is extend it another year. And it isn't delayed a year because XL hasn't been out there to do the work. I mean, let's not get caught up in that, because you didn't my understanding is you didn't request XL until just recently. It isn't like XL has delayed it by a year. But we now know that XL has always been difficult, or any of those people are hard to work with because they have contractors that they do this. So now what's before us is, as a town, okay, we're here, you're asking for another year extension. And what we're saying is, what else can we get done for the benefit of the town? And how do we advance this along? As you said, let's work together to advance this and get this done in a more cohesive, combined, comprehensive way. So my request is, and my desire is, to see progress not only on Main Street, which is all we're talking about here, just Main Street, and a little bit of road, you know, in front of Boulder Valley Ice. We're not talking about the entire town center, Superior Town Center area. We're just talking about FDP Phase 1, Main Street, and a little bit in front of Boulder Valley Ice. So we have a year that we're being proposed to extend the completion of just Main Street and the street in front of Boulder Valley Ice. Now, what other things do we want to have done in that same year time frame? And I would posture that we need to have some other work done, like put back the buffer, put back the cemetery, get some plans in place to actually do the landscaping around them. And also, we need to get our tails going, moving faster, because we, the town, have to give you, the developer, Phase 1 and Park 1 and Park 2 designs. So we need to work on those and get those to you so that you can get an FDP back to us that does Park 1 and Park 2 along Coal Creek Corridor. And then at the same time, I'd like to see us make progress, real progress, and get completed the restoration of the cemetery and the restoration and the completion of the landscaping of the buffer. That's my request as a compromise and a jointly working together. Extending your date because it makes sense. You're not ready to be done by December 31st of this year. There's no way you can do that. There's no way that we're suggesting we want to take the bond and take over the completion of that. So we're willing to give an extension, but we need to get something back for that. And for me, what would be very important is what the residents are looking for. Park space on 1 and 2, Parks 1 and 2, restoration of the cemetery area, and the completion of the buffer.
I just want to be clear that Rita is not talking for the whole board. That's her personal opinion, so I disagree with that approach.
Okay.
Well, you can disagree with it, but don't attack me
No, I'm
and
not
say it's
attacking you,
my
but you're
personal
saying- but you're
opinion.
not- but
It's
you're not
more than
speaking for the
just
whole
my
board,
personal,
though.
it's my opinion as a representative.
I agree
of
with that.
I think we're all
residents, so it's not
entitled
a
to our
personal
own,
opinion.
own
I
trustee
agree with that,
opinion.
but it's not for the entire board, though. It's just-
Okay.
Right,
Trustee,
she's speaking for
we're clear.
herself, yeah.
Yeah.
Trustee,
Um,
hold on, just a second.
um,
Trustee Hansen had a
Okay.
comment, and then we'll get.
This request doesn't really come as a surprise because we had this discussion, something similar to this before you were on the board, about the delays at Boulder Valley Ice and how that was delaying putting in the roads and the other infrastructure. Because I remember clearly when Randy stood before us and said that he doesn't want to put paved roads out there when there's no other structures out there, because then it looks like the project is really stalled and it doesn't look good, and you can't attract businesses there with just paved roads and nothing else out there. So this doesn't surprise me, and I don't see any issues with it at all. The request for the other things, I don't know. I think that's a bigger discussion for the board, because I still see a cemetery there. We don't have to put the cemetery back. It's still there. The buffer zone is still there. It just looks different than what it did several months ago. So that's a bigger discussion, but I don't think that should have any impact on our decision tonight about whether we extend this or not. I think it makes good business sense. Let's extend it. Big deal. And let's talk about it again next year if something else comes up. But let's extend it and let's get going on with the project.
And just, if I could, earlier on, there was a question. I'm very comfortable with the date that's in there at this point where we are now. Things can happen that we can't control, but I'm very comfortable that we won't need to extend this again if we get extended to December 31st of 2016.
Okay, Trustee Petty.
I'm not interested in liberalizing the 1 year. I actually like the feet to the fire every year. I know it's difficult on you, but it is a good checks and balance for us, so I'm interested in keeping the 1 year. I do appreciate all the detail you gave, and it helps me understand the pain of managing the million moving parts that you're trying to manage here. I missed the last board meeting and frankly was very disturbed about this buffer misunderstanding. Having lived in construction zones and near construction zones, et cetera, I feel those residents' pain. And I think they had every right to expect it to be done exactly according to the expectations. So if we're going to extend this agreement with you, I do have an issue. I don't need all the things completed that Rita talked about. I see where you're coming from. But where do we stand on this buffer issue? I feel it's unfair to that group of residents to sit here and be spending development time on new projects and ignoring the fact that that needs to be repaired. I would be more comfortable with your request if, in fact, you could commit to this board that by the end of December 31st, 2016, that buffer will be restored to whatever is agreed upon by the parties, which is the town, the attorneys, you, whatever, that it should be restored to. Could you make that commitment?
I can make a commitment to work with you and the town, as I always have,
Mhm.
to resolve issues and to get
Right.
things completed. I don't know what exact plan is going to be selected.
Right. See, what I don't, you understand, I don't want it to be 2025. And progress has been made on everything, and that buffer is still sitting over there, overgrown with weeds, with no commitment by you to put it back. So I need some commitment.
Well, so we
How do
have a
my-
development
How do you
agreement.
guys feel about this lingering issue with the buffer? I wasn't at the meeting. How do you
Yeah,
feel?
let me express my opinion. First of all, it creates concern when something that seems not even related to what's going on in the project gets done, grazed and, left, carved out and left for God knows how long. And meanwhile, we don't even have Main Street done, so it's nowhere even near Main Street. So that's sitting out there. That causes concern. Same, Chris, I understand the cemetery is still there. The concern there is it stable? Is there access to it? Those are very real concerns. And that's been
I
there for-
understand that, but if that's the concern, then state the concern. Don't say we need to put the cemetery back. The cemetery's
Well,
there.
that's-
So let's be very
That was
specific.
a shortcut for saying that. But anyway, so we need, and to mix that into this agreement is kind of complicated, and maybe that's not the way to do it, but some kind of commitment to work towards these things, to get a good feeling that we're gonna, and I believe your commitment that you're gonna work with us on some plan on the buffer. We'd like to see that sooner rather than later.
Joe, can I ask a question about the buffer? Because
Yeah.
I'm still very confused about the issues with the buffer. I know it was graded, but the 200 plus 50 feet is still there.
Well, it's a
No, it's
ditch
not.
for some people.
It's
Well,
not,
wasn't a
but-
ditch.
it was all,
but
the
it's-
dirt was all taken away.
It doesn't say in the annexation agreement
Right.
how that buffer should look, other than natural or
Native landscaping.
manicured.
Landscaped,
Well, yeah,
landscaped, not
landscaped or,
manicured.
landscaped or natural.
Can I
That's
say
all it
something?
says. It doesn't say anything else about that it can't have a slope.
And this is why people would like a plan.
Right, exactly.
So
That's the
that,
point.
so
Can I say
that
something?
earth movers don't show up and scar it and take it away without them knowing what's going on. And I think it's fair to ask for a plan, so that they know what's going on there.
So-
And
But to
we
be
buy
fair,
into it too.
There was a plan,
Okay,
and
trustee
that plan got changed out for a different plan. And so basically, which plan is correct? And
Well,
Well, that was discussed at the
it
last meeting. The only approved
graded to
plan.
which plan?
The only approved grading plan is the one approved by this board on August 25th, 2014. Now, that's where we're at. We have a divide, and it's called a great big huge 150-foot, 3-to-1 slope down that took away
So
all the dirt.
my-
So, hold on a
Tonight, I
second. I've been,
don't-
I've had my.
But we're not
I've had
gonna
my hand up
resolve
here for a
that.
what
while.
the plan should be, we're just saying,
Hold on a second.
We need a plan.
let's have a plan that we all agree to. And you say, you agree to work with us on that.
So, just let me share something about, so number one, my feeling is that what we're asked to approve here tonight as the extension should be voted on, but the extension, it has nothing to do with all these peripheral
That's right.
issues.
That's right.
Those are separate issues.
But
So
it's the
either we
only
vote-
thing we have
Hold on a second,
to-
hold on.
But it's the only thing we have to bargain with.
No, I disagree with that. I think that we vote on this up or we vote it down. We give you the extension or we don't give you the extension. Hopefully, we'll vote to give you the extension so we can move forward. Having said that, Joe made a comment, and Chris, you weren't here last time. I think, Sandy, were you here? So Joe made a comment that truly captured this whole buffer situation. I think, I asked you last time too. None of us on this board, or anybody else that lives in that community or in other parts of Rock Creek, ever imagined that the buffer would look the way that it does now. None of us, it looks so different than what we had imagined. And maybe we're all wrong, we had imagined something different, what a buffer really looks like to what it is right now. So what we're asking for the two of you that work on is to restore it as close as possible to what we thought we would have.
Well, maybe that's not the right thing to do. Maybe as,
Why is
I
that
say
not the right thing to do?
I say we have another discussion about just that buffer zone, like you're
Yeah,
talking
no,
about.
I'm saying that
and
I'm
come up with a
separating the
plan.
issues, but I'm saying.
No, I understand,
Joe
but-
made that comment, and he's totally right.
But
That's
I caution to say that
because-
let's get it back to as close to what it was before, because maybe once we sit down and talk about it, that's not what we want.
Chris, I didn't
Well-
ask for that. I said.
No, that's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
No, we want
others are
plan.
asking.
Here's the question. Frankly, put yourself in the position of the people who live there and have this out their back window or their front window. I mean, we've always got to be empathetic here. I feel they have every right, upon seeing earth movers and concrete trucks and whatever, putting everything else in while the buffer still remains unresolved. I don't know what the buffer resolution will be.
That's right.
But can we, as part of our expectation for extending this contract 1 year, that say, by the end of that year, that buffer will be restored?
That's too long.
Or,
You want to wait another year for the buffer to be
or
restored?
by, we extend, let's look at the options. We extend this 1 year, but by June 30th, the buffer's restored. You know, but you have the snow and all that kind of stuff. To whatever the agreed restoration is, I don't know what that might be, but you see what I'm trying to say. From a community perspective, from residents' perspective who live there, I think they have every right to see the resolution of this buffer issue before hotels go up and other things go up and whatnot, because it's a current
I
problem.
think most of us on the board agree with
So
that.
can we,
Yeah.
can
Yeah, I
we
think-
say we agree to extend this a year, but the buffer plan must be agreed to by April or whatever, and the execution of that plan by X?
Okay, let's hear from staff as when we think.
So
there's
I
a-
was just going to add to the discussion, and I put this in the digest as well, but my staff has met with a landscape engineering firm that's working on concepts for that area. We expect to have 3 concepts from them within 2.5 weeks now. I'm hoping that we can have a discussion at the work session on December 14th with regard to look at these concepts. That's the expectation. We may not make that date, but that's what I'm shooting for, and we can have, we can
Is
look
the
at those
developer
concepts.
included in all this?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and when, Matt, in your opinion, if we tied the development of the buffer, the resolution of the buffer problem and the restoration of the buffer, when, in your opinion, should that be accomplished by? June,
Well-
October, when?
I think, so we'll have these concepts, we'll look at, hopefully, we can come to a consensus on a preferred concept, which then will be taken to a final development plan. As part of that final development plan, we'll have a subdivision improvements agreement that will have in there, completion date as well.
So what do you think's reasonable, though, if we approve this thing tonight, what's reasonable to put that term in it tonight?
I'd like to keep those separate, though, but I think.
I totally
we have
do,
to-
because-
We
I
have to
don't want
extend
to keep them
this.
separate.
Well, we do, I think we need to have
I
it
think we're
separate.
setting ourselves up for failure if we say tonight that we want to have
No, we're
this buffer.
committed to resolving this issue.
I think
We
it's
are
good to
committed
be
to
committed
resolving
to
it.
have the
What- He was about to answer.
Yeah.
Give
Yeah,
us an
what in
estimation.
your
Well,
opinion?
I think that's better for the developer to answer rather than myself.
And wait, can I just clarify something? First of all, the board did approve an actual grading plan, and that is not what was actually graded.
Correct.
Second of all, you're talking about a concept plan. Why do we need a concept plan when we already have a grading plan that we already approved? So, and who's
have-
executing that contract plan?
It's a whole, what the buffer would look like. It's basically like the landscaping plan,
Yeah.
that the concept plan is. That's what it's talking about.
Okay, so it's just the next step from what we approved.
Correct.
The
Right,
grading plan that we
exactly.
actually approved.
We've never had a landscaping plan.
Because it
perhaps.
presumes the
If it does a
restoration back to
preliminary
what
one,
was
the
approved in
landscape one,
August of
we've seen
Okay, we're
2014.
talking over each other.
I'm sorry, what was that? Sandy?
You're right.
I'm confused now, because if this is a landscape plan, does
No,
it
there is,
presume the August 2014 is put back in place? What was approved in August 2014 is put back in place, and this is just the top
That would be
dressing?
one
Right.
option.
Right,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. That's one
Well,
possibility.
but we've also got what's on the ground out there now, and that has to be taken into consideration as well.
But
Well,
how
I
do
think-
we, as a board, not get ourselves in the position of renewing this, seeing all other kinds of progress made, and having this
I don't think that's gonna
unsatisfactory
happen, though.
vote?
I don't
Well,
So
we
I
should
think
mix
the
this
bottom
together.
line
Wants to
here.
protect that.
I think the bottom line here is
A relationship.
that we would like to move forward with this and extend it for another year, but we just want something fixed back to the way it was supposed to be. That it was some sort of mistake, we can all, move forward and then just repair the mistake.
Can you commit to that, Randy?
Like I said, I've committed forever to working with the town to resolve the issues that come up. This is one of the issues. There'll always be issues that come up, and I'll always be here to work with you
But
to
if
resolve them.
we agree on a resolution, which I think we can you have it done by can you have that resolution executed by December 31st of 2016?
Well, if we're talking about the subdivision improvement agreement, as we submitted it, that's great. And if you're asking for, would we accept you adding additional provisions to the subdivision improvement agreement? I'm not sure, I guess I'm just really
I'm
confused what you're asking
confused
for.
about why
Yeah,
you're
I'm
involving
confused
the SIA.
Because that's what we're negotiating right now.
Tonight?
Yes.
The
That's what-
SIA is the
And
extension of the
and I
date.
think that's too hard.
You
Right.
gotta separate them.
Just
Yeah.
legally, the only thing we could do is put in a deadline by which an application would have to be submitted, because once the application comes to you, you could
Right,
take
that's-
a year to approve it, or
Yeah.
however long you
And-
wanted
That's
to. So
fine.
I just,
And-
legally, we can't impose a deadline that the developer can't meet.
So how
And just
about an
to-
application?
Just to play devil's advocate, which is contrary, I'm saying something that really is contrary from what I'd like to see, but we might come to a concept and all agree that we should not be doing anything to the buffer until we finish X, Y, and Z. And then we get to the buffer, we
So how
we
would
gotta
you
see
word
with
So I
this.
think what
So
Kendra just said.
we just, I think, I would not put anything in this agreement that says he's gonna do something about something
I
else.
agree.
Because we have all the costs and everything here. We have some kind of side agreement, or maybe we have a condition that.
What did you say again? Can you repeat what you just
That,
said?
All I said was if there's any deadline going anywhere, we can't make it a deadline by which something would have to be approved. The only
Executed,
thing we
yeah.
could do is put a deadline on the developer to submit something. We can't then obligate the developer
I'm happy
to
with
our
that
own
in this
approval
agreement.
calendar,
There will be
whatever that
It's
means.
what we were,
Time and place.
what we were
I've
hearing, what we were hearing was it might be something by the end of the year, first quarter of next year. Would that be acceptable to
Well, just for
have?
clarification, the plans for all the parks and open space are subject to the town and the town board. So we don't control that process. So the town, as trustee Sorelli said, the town is responsible for preparing improvement plans for all parks and open space areas. And then we're responsible for constructing those in accordance with the development agreement.
Both, you're
So
saying open space as well as parks? I mean, I
But
understood it
it's
was
all
parks.
identified as the same category, parks and open space.
Okay, so I thought it was just parks 1, 2, and possibly 3 that we, as a town, had to give. And 3 would be only if, decides which side was actually doing it, the developer, or per your plan, or per the town's plan for parcel 3.
It's all parks and open space.
Okay.
So is
owned
the
by
buffer, is the buffer zone open space?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
So-
category of parks and open
it's
space.
natural open space.
Oh, so then I'm confused. Why was it graded if it was supposed to be in our hands?
Well, that was the whole dilemma last meeting,
That
so.
was
I think you were
surprised a lot
here,
of
that
people.
was the whole
Well-
problem, see?
Okay, so I was here, and I do get that, and
That
that
was
is
the
a
whole
new
problem.
Now,
statement.
there is language in the annexation agreement about how it could be
Landscape,
landscaped, et cetera.
right.
So,
Or natural.
or natural and even naturally landscaped,
Right.
I mean, something can be done to it. It's just that everybody,
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but, so I'd like to see us know what we want it to be, and developer kind of agree with that, and we move forward on it. And I don't want to have a completion date picked out of the air tonight.
completion date for.
I don't
Doesn't
want to
want
have
one.
a
Right.
completion date picked out of the air for that to happen.
I agree.
Because it may not make sense.
I accept what Kendra said, that it can't be a completion date, but how do you see these, both the extension and the buffer restoration working over the course of the next couple of years?
Not a
Or
couple
the
of years,
next
couple months.
6 months, or the next
I
whatever.
don't want it written into this agreement as a condition of this,
Okay, we've
a
got that.
separate good faith effort on both parties to resolve, that's kind of a nebulous, but it means something to me, that we resolve
And I
these
think,
issues.
Randy, you're seeing how important this is.
And I think, I
For us.
trust
I
the
understand
developer
that.
saying good faith on his part. I believe that, and so,
If we do 2 agreements, should we have a time frame by which we jointly agree, we mutually agree, all the parties agree to have a proposed, whatever form it would take,
A submission of
a submission together? Like, we will agree that, because we've got to be serious about this, that by June 30th or by March 30th or by February 28th or whatever, we will have expended the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears to have reached agreement about what's going to happen there. Nothing, maybe, or complete restoration back to the
It's
office.
agreement or have a proposal?
A proposal.
Agreement on a concept, and then that to hand off to the developer so they can submit an
I
FDP.
would like a time frame.
I'd like it to be a
specified.
mutual agreement of
But I
concept.
would like.
Okay, is that something to do tonight or to do at another time?
Well, I guess it depends what kind of agreement we're talking about. If we want to agree tonight with the developer and say we will both use our best efforts, our good faith, to have a plan in place by blank date, that's certainly something we can do tonight. There wouldn't be a written agreement, it would be on the record, obviously, we'd have a record of these proceedings. And I think a good faith or best efforts, or, whatever language, reasonable business efforts, whatever we would like to use for that language, that would be fine. I agree that it makes more sense to keep that separate from this SIA amendment, because the SIA amendment technically doesn't deal with the buffer at all. And that SIA, and that portion doesn't deal with the buffer at all. So
Right.
to keep those two things separate and clean, I think it would make more sense to continue to keep them separate. But that said, you can certainly, talk to the developer and say, hey, do we have your commitment to help us resolve this by blank date? That's.
And I'd like to reach that date tonight.
Mhm.
We have the developer here, we have all board members here tonight, everybody, all the parties.
Trustee Hanson has.
Matt, you said that you had a firm that's actually doing some concept plans on the buffer zone.
Yeah, we met with the firm.
Okay, so we've been down this road before where we've had these head nod agreements, and then it comes back to haunt us at a different date. I would say, let's not come up with a date certain of anything at this point, except before the end of the year or the next meeting, if we can see these concept plans, because that starts the ball rolling. We start having the discussion in the meeting, we see these different options, we have people from Waterford Estates that can come in and comment on it and get their feedback on it. So let's do that, because that's.
It's more than just Waterford, I just want to make a point of that.
Okay.
There's 3 different developers. Yeah.
So, whatever, but I'm just saying, if we get someone to come in and show us their concept plans, and that starts the ball rolling. it starts the
And that's an
discussion.
important point you're making, because I was going to make that, Chris, is that the public has to be able to
Right.
come in and look at
Right.
these concepts. We can't, along with the developer, just the 2 parties here,
That's
make
right.
this decision. Because we've already told them that we help, since 1998 and beyond, residents have come forward and said, this is what we want per the comprehensive plan, a 250 or the 300-foot buffer. So that's been worked in. It's always been there. It's been there for years.
So Rita, in lieu of the conversation that's just transpired, what would you like to see happen tonight?
Well, what I would like to see happen tonight is the commitment that we would get a concept plan developed for review, and then move that as quickly as possible sometime in the first quarter, through the FDP process.
Are you going to say by March 30th?
Yeah.
Well-
2016? Are you going to put a date?
I think we focus on the date for the concepts, and I'm trying to commit to
That's
December 14th.
Yes. Perfect.
Good.
Great,
All right.
beautiful.
That's
So,
step one.
Of 2015, right?
Right, of 2015.
Well, then,
So-
and then after that, after we get that through and the public gets to comment on that, then we hand it off to the developer, and then they will have as much urgency, I know they will, to get through the FDP process, because you have to, the developer has to give us the FDP. We can't create the FDP as a board, so.
Well, we're
We can give
creating
you the
FDPs
concept.
for Parks 1 and 2 per our agreement with them.
Are
I'd
we
have to go
doing-
back and look at the other.
Is it the
houses.
FDP or is it just a concept? I think it's just a
No,
concept.
FDP, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can actually
We're in
create the
charge of
FDP?
design, yeah.
Okay, well, then we need to get our butts in gear, like I said, and get that done.
But we
And
have
then
to-
hand it off to you, and then you can take it from there and work
But
it.
this has to be a mutually agreed concept because of
Yeah,
the issues going
yeah,
on.
there's a little difference here between this and the other parks, but we'll deal with that, because it's already been done. It's already been graded.
together.
Yeah.
So Kendra, how would you like us to, what, with all your wealth of experience in municipal affairs, you heard what we just said, how would you proceed? We have
Sandy, is
two
your-
items on the table.
Again, I would first,
Mic on?
if the board desires to, first approve the SIA amendment. Then, if the board wishes, ask the developer on the record if he can commit to working to get this done by a date certain, what that date certain would be. And then you can even make a motion to say that the board will also commit to work, use its best efforts to get that resolution completed by blank date. And then it's all on the record. Again, I understand what trustee Hansen's saying about the head nod, and no, we don't have a written agreement. But if we're trying to do something tonight, that's all I can recommend.
Is it possible, I'm just asking the rest of the board, can we wait till December 14th to see some concept plans? Because we don't know that if, maybe these concept plans are gonna be great and they're gonna be the best improvements, they're gonna take longer than March 15th or something
Yeah.
like that. I hate to put a date on this until we actually see that and have that discussion. So let's do that. Let's set the date certain that we're gonna meet on the 14th and see the concept plans. And then from that point, let's then decide how long it should take us to do it. It'll give the developer a month to talk it over with his people and see, if they can commit to a
Will
certain
you be
date.
here on the 14th?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And I expect to be here, I think that's when we're discussing the PD Amendment 3.
And
So Chris,
when-
I'm good with, he's gonna be here.
Okay, when we see these concept plans and then we move forward on that, are we also moving forward in who's paying for this? I mean, we're appropriating money at this point, at least it feels that way.
No,
Landscape
no, it's
plans,
all
who
part
are
of
we
the,
paying for?
it's all part of public improvements TIF.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's all TIF.
It's
The
all-
landscape plans.
Okay.
as
It's
well.
all anything public improvements.
Because it will ultimately come back to the town as public land.
Right.
It'll be deeded back to us, all of this that we've been
That's
talking
I'm good
about.
with what Chris said, though. I
Okay,
like
so
that.
are we good moving the resolution forward and then
Yes.
with what?
Or I
trustee
thought we were
Hanson-
gonna move everything out to December 14th.
Not the
No,
That's it.
resolution,
I
no.
think we should
Yeah, this
get
we
this
need to
done.
get done.
Well, what difference does it make if we
Motion.
we move
Because,
it out?
we
Because,
tie 'em
you know,
together that
It's
way.
not December 31st yet, we can make the motion then, too.
Yeah, if we have a snowstorm that is so heavy.
We
that
only
we
have
can't
one
meet,
meeting in
and-
December.
Yeah,
That
I
would be
just,
not- I don't
this,
wanna-
it's not gonna change anything. I'm
We
looking
have
forward to
another
seeing those
November
plans. and-
meeting, too.
Yes, we do.
Well,
Okay.
Well,
so I'm-
I also could go back to what Kendra said, is make some kind of a resolution that
It's a motion that
says,
we make.
I'd
a
like to
motion, I
make
mean.
the second resolution before the first. I'd like to know, I can vote for extending this agreement tonight, but I would like to hear the wording of the second resolution first before I do that.
I thought we were gonna wait till the 14th to see the concept plans, and then we'll
But we
forecast out a
then
timeline.
decouple,
That
And
was
that
one
troubles me.
option.
There should be trouble you, if this is set, stands in.
Well, she's wanting to make
I'm just gonna throw one other thing out there.
Okay.
You have a PD amendment coming.
Mhm.
So this is not the last opportunity you will have,
Yes.
should you need this to be an express condition of something. The PD amendment is, I believe, is expected to come to you possibly on December 14th, but if not soon after
Oh,
that. So
that's
I'm-
interesting.
I'm just throwing that out as another option, rather than try to tie this to an FDP that doesn't even include the buffer. When you get a PD amendment, it will include all of the property in the PD. Well, And the BD amendment covers the
That's
whole
more
BD.
appropriate,
That's
though.
good.
So that may be a better
That's a good
area or time in which to deal with this.
I think that is the right way to go, and that's what that's absolutely fine. And I think that, at least the developer has had an opportunity to understand what it is we're expecting, and then we
And
can
this
talk
is
about it
important.
again.
This
Yeah,
is super
right,
important.
right.
Totally get it.
And so this
I'm
can
good
be.
with this.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
I
okay
think
with
this
that.
I'm good with this, too.
a
Okay.
very
All right, Chris, go ahead.
reasonable
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to Town of Superior Resolution Number
Fifty-six.
56, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a second amendment to the subdivision improvement agreement for Phase 1 of the Superior Town Center.
Okay, motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Gregoris. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimous. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Back next time for the next round.
Okay,
I like to think.
Is there anything else, or is that?
yes,
Absolutely.
we do have
It
a
feels
little bit of
organized.
follow-up discussion on the El Dorado K Park that we were on at 7:01 when we, and I think trustee Pennington had her hand up at that point, so
I
let's.
want to know, and I keep asking, and I don't know the answer yet. When will this board officially vote to authorize the building of the park? Is that with the
Well, you can do it
construction?
tonight.
Huh?
You can do it tonight. If you, for the.
Because we've
master
never,
concept
never
plan.
had an official,
It's not on the agenda, but.
right.
It's not on the agenda.
Right, okay.
Well, they added it as a discussion.
it's a work
of
session
Of a
item.
work
So-
session item. I
Let's
took it
do it
to.
on the
You can do a
23rd.
straw poll, you can do a straw poll, right?
That's fine,
That's a head
that's
nod.
fine.
A head nod, here we go
That's-
again.
There you go with the head
And
nod.
then I wanted to
What do we head nod?
make
But
a, just a.
But hold on, I mean, to answer your question, it's really official when we approve the construction contract,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Correct.
So I think,
So-
yeah, that's what
so-
I expected to hear from you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right?
not a straw poll
Right.
here.
Okay. But I do think it's appropriate to have a head nod, to know if there are any dissenters tonight and speak about the issues of causing the dissent. If somebody has a problem, now's the time to speak. But I wanted to answer the one resident's, I don't even know recollect the full question, but what it prompted in my mind. Remember when we returned to the post-stack recommendation, of this phasing?
Mhm.
Part of it was that if future residents and future boards decide that they want to keep building out into that big gray area.
Right.
There's the feasibility intact, and that's really why we went back to the original plan. So that's what I wanted to tell that resident when he was still here. That, in fact, when we started out, every square inch was covered, and we pulled back on that one section. And the third thing is the sled hill. Is that just gonna be sort of de facto as the kids slide down the slope
Yeah, towards Indiana?
towards the school?
Oh, towards the school. Oh,
They-
that's drainage.
That they just do it? We're not
Yeah,
gonna make it
yeah.
official?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't make it
Okay.
official.
And we're not
There
gonna put any
aren't
bollards there or
official
anything like
sled
that.
hills, But there's
Yeah.
plenty of them.
Yeah, well, the problem with it is I fear somebody eventually is gonna get injured because that drainage has those big rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's not enough snow and you get some silly decision-making, I'm a little concerned about that. So that's the reason for raising this issue.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
And then I wanted to bring up two things. As we move forward and we figure out the true budget and the true cost of doing this park, and if we determine that it is less, I hope that you can come forward to the board and look at other amenities that we could add.
Yeah, when we bid it out, we get pricing back. If it comes in significantly less or to where we think we can add amenities, we would bring that forward to you.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's at the forefront.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is the parking loop. I'm hesitant about it in several terms. And one, what do we think it's going to be? And two, are we spending that much money knowing what it might be, what it could be? So our purpose is to provide parking, right?
Right.
is designed for is a hug-and-go drop-off loop for the school. And
No, I think that was
yes,
a
it
no,
is.
by the way.
No, that was a
No,
benefit,
wait,
but it
when you
wasn't
look at the
designed.
plan, it's got 2 lanes in it.
Mm-hmm.
A hug-and-go lane and a through
Yeah.
lane.
That's
So-
been my understanding the whole time. Then that was the original conversation
Okay, are
about
we
that
o-
opportunity.
Are
Yes.
we okay with spending that kind of money for this, knowing that that's the use it's going to be?
I
Well,
am absolutely fine with it.
Having sat with the El Dorado K-8 school committee and living with all that school traffic day in and day out, I think we've got to look at this as a solution to 2 problems. We have a unique opportunity here not to do that loop when we could do that loop for the incremental cost of that loop. I think would be very poor, short-sighted decision-making. So I don't care if they contribute a dime. The fact is, these are our kids.
That's
And
right.
these are our
Right.
communities.
Yeah, it's our
And we
community.
are the town trustees.
That's right. Agree, 100%.
So do you have enough direction from us as to, there was a couple of little, move the sand volleyball here, move.
I don't know where we
figure-
stood about a roof on the.
Yeah, can I, a
So,
couple questions?
so here's what I had. Include wildflower plantings and benches throughout the park. Benches were already in the plan, but I added that as a note. Park shelters to have roofs, more of a pavilion type of shelter than the other that we had talked about. And we'll provide you what those look like. I'll send those out to you so you can see what those shelters are gonna look like. Move the sand volleyball court further away from the homes.
Potentially.
Potentially, we'll take a look at that.
Maybe adjacent to the basketball court.
Right, and then, those were the main ones I had.
A question about the 2 gazebos or whatever we're
Yeah.
calling those. Has it always been the plan that we'd have one at one end of the park and one at the other?
Well, the second one was added after the May discussion by the board.
Because at one point, we were talking about having a large enough shelter that it could be used for education purposes. So the school, 2nd graders could go over there, their class could go out and learn in the park. And there's some other reasons, if we had a shelter that was bigger, then when we apply, and we had this discussion in ProStack, if there was a bigger shelter there that could be used for educational purposes, educational grants are more readily available, potentially.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we have one that's bigger that could be termed as an educational
Well,
facility?
part of this was also, let's go way back, when we had the amphitheater there.
Yeah,
And that was intended part for performance, right?
yep.
And again, we go to the sense of place and this distinct purpose for this park. We can't have parks that just duplicate everything. We've got a bike park, the dog park, bike park, da-da-da. We've got different raison d'etre, if you will, reasons for being of these parks. So the performance component of this and sort of the unique feature, ability to have a wedding or whatnot on that beautiful vista at the top of the park that looks at the mountains, and the rest, and this natural grade with lawn chairs and whatnot is, that's how it came forth. Actually, 2 of us were out there going, geez, if we don't do something at this edge, it's going to be a real missed
Okay.
opportunity.
Yep.
So, that's the one I support. I support meeting the needs of a diverse clientele to use that park.
Yep.
So, what I heard Patrick say tonight was that we could evolve to that if there was a budget available.
Windfall?
You could look at it then, but,
We will send
Yeah,
you
that's why I wanna make
a
sure.
picture of what those shelters look like and the sizes of them, and then if there's opportunity for larger shelter.
And if the roof is in question for the gazebo, is what I'll call it, since
yeah.
my colleague has told me a pergola never has a roof, I
Right.
stand
Let's call it a
corrected.
band shell.
Okay, no, a nice little thing. Let's at least have that cost available to us so we can make an informed
We
decision.
should have a roof.
Yeah.
Right.
We plan on including them with roofs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either that or he's
Any
gonna
other
drink
park
and tarps
ideas?
over it.
You know, one thing I didn't bring up in the reports and comments, at the last ProStack meeting, there was a woman that presented to the group. I forget the name of the organization, but she represents a group of people that want to put in a pool, an indoor pool.
Yeah, that was in the meeting notes.
Yeah, and she'd spoken to Randy, and he had suggested potentially Block 8, which is right on the corner when you come in to the town center, that an indoor pool could go there. At some point, she's going to come back to the board and do a presentation on the potential of having an indoor competitive pool. And I also asked her, well, if you want to get some traction with the board, you should probably consider a second floor that could serve as a rec center and meeting space and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm fairly certain she's going to come back at some point, but that was the discussion that was had at the last ProStack meeting.
This is, to key on this, one reason to have a retreat sooner rather than later, please nobody miss December 2nd, because we have to once and for all decide whether or not we're going to do anything with the ballot next November. And clock's ticking. It's been 6 months of tick, 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 7 months, 8 months since we last had this discussion.
Mhm.
And we know it's an important thing, so be there.
And I also think that when we have the next FDP come forward, PD or whatever you want to call it at this point, that we should have kind of a united front of where we all work together. Where we all work together, meeting the goals of the town.
Boy, that would be a novel idea.
Okay.
Don't we do that every day?
Really?
Oh, we did that all the
Wouldn't it
time.
be very novel? So.
I think we're there if you guys just agree with me.
Okay, anything further? All right, we're adjourned.